Here we go. It's Friday, everybody. Welcome to the Irish Breakdown Podcast. I am Vince D'Addario. I am the football analyst here at irishbreakdown.com. And it is a Friday free-for-all mailbag. And I'm fired up. I'm excited. Brian will be here momentarily. He will definitely join us, so don't worry. It's not just going to be me. So we are going to have some fun today. And I will try to get to everybody's questions. If you have a recruiting question, because there is some obvious recruiting stuff going on, it's a huge recruiting weekend for Notre Dame, Brian will be on, and he will be able to answer those specific questions because he is the recruiting guy. So very excited about this weekend, everybody. I'm telling you right now, I was talking to Brian earlier today. We were texting back and forth, and I don't know if I'm overly confident about what's going to happen tomorrow or what, but I have a great feeling about what things are going to look like tomorrow when Notre Dame takes the field against Cincinnati at 2:30. I am super excited. I am really fired up for what this is going to look like tomorrow. I think Notre Dame is going to have a great plan. I'm obviously super confident in what the defense is going to do. And I think the offense is going to start to click a little bit. I think that this Cincinnati defense is vulnerable to the run. I feel really good about tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I actually feel better than what my prediction said yesterday, but I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with the 28-24. I think that's what I had. But I'm fired up, man. I am super, super duper excited. All right, so let's head over to the comments section and see if we can find some great questions. Tommy Gunn's always in. Rocking the IB Nation, ready to go. I'm fired up as well, Tommy. This is going to be a great weekend for Notre Dame football. I can feel it in my bones. Really, really fired up. TJ says, greeting IB Nation. Hard to find Irish fans in Southern Caribbean. It may be hard to find Notre Dame fans in the Southern Caribbean, but the fact that you're in the Southern Caribbean, I think you win. So I think you're pretty good to go. I'd rather be there than on the southern side of South Bend. We do have a super chat from DJ Wilson jumping in. Thank you, DJ. Very, very much appreciated. He said, just want to show support for our favorite ND coverage. Really appreciate that, DJ. We just completed yesterday one of our best, not one of, our best month our company has seen since we got things going. And that's 100% all about you guys, and we couldn't be more excited about the direction for Irish Breakdown. And I know that I'm speaking for Brian when I say how excited we are about where everything is going and the support that we have and the family that we have here at Irish Breakdown. And it's absolutely amazing. We look forward to talking with you guys every single day, and that wouldn't be possible without all of your support and without just the excitement that you guys bring to what we're doing. So really appreciate everything you guys are doing. There's also some really good conversation going on over on the boards. So make sure you are checking that out. Always good things going on over at the boards. Let's see. Eric Ward says, I'm nervous. Hope we are ready. Eric, come on, man. Jump on the bandwagon with me. I'm not nervous at all. I think it's going to be great. Alan says, he says, we're ready. TJ says, always nervous like a day at work when everything in your life rides on you doing your job. That is a great point. If Notre Dame just goes out and does their job, they're going to win this game. I'm telling you, man to man, Notre Dame should win this game. We saw, it's not all about recruiting, but when we put up the recruiting comparison, we got Notre Dame versus Cincinnati. There is no comparison. I mean, Notre Dame should win this game. I mean, the fact that they're an underdog for the second week in a row, the fact that they're an underdog at home, they've got a 26-game win streak at home. And yes, I realize they almost lost it to Toledo. I get that. But every team slips up every now and again, right? We've talked a million times about how, Clemson struggles with Syracuse, right? They almost lost to, Georgia Tech at home, right? So they were a goal line stand away from, losing at home to Georgia Tech. So, yeah, I get it. I totally get it. But the fact that Notre Dame is an underdog, I think, is just going to fire them up. And then, of course, Desmond Ridder had to open his mouth and talk a little bit of garbage, which we know for a fact is bulletin board material for Notre Dame. So that's not exactly the place that I would want to be if I'm the Cincinnati Bearcats. We'll see how they handle that when they come into Notre Dame Stadium. But it's going to be very, very interesting to see. We got another super chat here from Tom. Tom, thank you very, very much. Will Kelly let Tommy Rees open it up with screens, jet sweeps, and using all of their speed? I'll tell you what, Tom, I don't think Brian Kelly is really telling Tommy Rees what he can and can't do. I think it's all Tommy. I said earlier, I think it was the prediction show where I said, look, maybe I'm being optimistic, but I've seen them work on a lot of screens in practice, right? I've seen them do a lot of that stuff with sweeps and using their speed and all of that fun stuff. I have seen it with my own eyes. I have empirical evidence that it is in the playbook. I would love to think that they just kind of saved it up. Maybe that's not the case. I'm not sure, but I think this is the perfect week to unveil some of that stuff. I really, really do. I think that you can get Cincinnati because they are so aggressive defensively. I think that you can get them with some of those screens and misdirections and things of that nature. And we know that it's in the playbook. We know that there's the speed to burn, whether you're talking about the running backs, whether you're talking about Braden Lenzy. You could even work with Avery Davis on some of those jets and things of that nature. I just think this is the perfect week to open that up. So I think the real question is, will Tommy Rees open it up? I don't think it's a case of will Kelly allow Tommy Rees to open it up. I think Tommy Rees pretty much has control, of what he wants to do. So I'm hoping he does. That's really all I got to say, Tom. You and I are right together on this one. I really hope that he does. Okay, let's see where we're at. Got to scroll back up. A lot of excitement for the podcast, which I do love. Dan Clement says, if the Notre Dame offensive line plays better and Notre Dame wins, but not in a blowout, do you think the rest of the schedule being so weak will allow the national audience to dismiss Notre Dame? If Notre Dame wins this game, they will be favored, the rest of the way, right? Is it a weak schedule? I would say that going into the preseason, everybody thought this was, the toughest 5-game stretch that anybody's ever seen. And, all of those things. I think North Carolina obviously had a misstep early. Their defense looks atrocious. Their offense isn't scoring enough to help that defense. USC obviously had to fire their head coach. So, they got curb stomped by Oregon State. So it makes the schedule a little bit softer, obviously. They're not going to dismiss Notre Dame because Notre Dame, if they win this week, they got a great chance of winning out. If they win out, they're in the playoff, period. End of discussion. No questions asked. So they can dismiss Notre Dame all they want, from an analytical standpoint, I don't think Notre Dame can, all that. That's fine. Dismiss this team at your own peril. Because if they go undefeated, they're going to be in the playoff, and they're going to have an opportunity to answer their critics. That's the way I see it. At this point, I don't really give a crap what the media says or the national audience, because we've seen very clearly that the College Football Playoff Committee likes Notre Dame. And whether Notre Dame's an 11-1 team or a 12-0 team, they got a great shot of getting in. And the more parity that we see at the top, the better the chances are. So if Notre Dame wins out, they're in. No question. And so if they win and they're in, they'll be able to prove it themselves. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says. If they prove it on the field, that's all that matters. So, Dan, I love the question. I'm hoping the O-line plays better. I'm hoping Notre Dame wins. If the O-line plays better, this game's not going to be close. That's kind of how I feel about the whole thing. If the line plays better, this team's going to take off. So, I don't think it'll be a close game if the line plays even average overall, right? See, we got another super chat from Q Kibbs 97. Thank you very, very, very much. He says, people need to understand that Buckner is simply part of what we do on offense. It isn't because anyone sucks or trying to be old Boise State. No, you're absolutely right, Kibbs. Tyler Buckner is an exceptional athlete. He's a very, very good quarterback. He is the quarterback of the future, right? Now, when does the future start? I don't know. Will it be at the end of this year? Will it be next year? I think Drew Pine might have something to say about this whole situation, right? Because he's coming back next year. So you're going to have a quarterback competition next year between Drew Pine and Tyler Buckner. And everybody's so high on Drew Pine and they want him to start this week and all that. Well, he's still going to be around next year too. So, are you throwing him to the side and starting Tyler Buckner? What are all these people's plans who want to start Drew Pine, this week? I completely agree with Kibbs on this one. I think that, they are using Tyler Buckner perfectly. They got him a package. He's the changeup. He's the spark. He's all of those different things, right? I think that's a perfect place for him this year as a true freshman who hasn't played football in almost 2 years, okay? It's a perfect position for him. It doesn't put all the pressure on him. There's a big difference between being the package quarterback and being the guy that's the starter with all the pressure on his shoulders, right? We haven't seen Tyler Buckner come to the podium, post-game. It's the starting quarterback that comes to the podium post-game, right? And so I frankly, I'm very happy with the way that Notre Dame is using Tyler Buckner. If I'm being honest, I'm a little shocked that they're using him this way, in a good way, like a good shocked, because I love the way they're doing it as a changeup. So, people absolutely need to understand that, again, he's the future and there's nothing wrong with that. He's the future. So get excited about that fact and be excited about what he brings to the table this year and the manner in which they're using him, because he's a special quarterback. He's a special talent, and they're putting him on the field, and I love that. The Sunset Kid, time to put Cincy back to the JV squad. Go Irish. Love that. I love that. Robert, I have a feeling with all the talking by Cincinnati, Notre Dame is going to dominate like they did against Florida State at Notre Dame, with Winbush at quarterback predicting Notre Dame 45-14. I would be on board with that, Robert. That would make for a very pleasant weekend for me personally. So I'm all about that, and I think it's very much in the realm of possibility. I rewatched the IU Cincinnati game this morning. I'm telling you, if anybody hasn't gone back and watched that game, IU left so many opportunities out on that field. If they connect on their opportunities, they don't go for it on 4th and 1 inside the 10-yard line. If they, all those different things, it should have been a blowout in IU's favor. And we're not even having this conversation about Cincinnati right now. So I agree with you, Robert. I think that I would not be shocked if that ended up happening. I really wouldn't. I don't know what it was about the night of sleep I got last night, man, but I'm feeling frisky. I'm feeling good about what Notre Dame brings to the table for tomorrow. I do. D-Rock says time to step it up, Reese, and the offense, game 5. I think it's time to open things up a little bit. I completely agree with you, D-Rock. I really do. Eric, 1863. I wonder if that's like a year. Is that a year that you enjoyed in history, maybe? That'd be exciting. That's right in the midst of the Civil War. It's a lot of fun in 1863. Anyway, hey, guys, I think the Irish win tomorrow. Forced turnovers and short fields lead to early touchdowns. Big recruiting weekend. Anyone you have your eye on? Walker Howard seems an interesting guy to get on campus. Again, Eric, Brian will kind of come on and be the recruiting guy, so we will come back to that. I'm sure that there's going to be other questions as we move forward. So your question absolutely will get answered about the recruiting part of things, but I love your prediction. I absolutely love it because I think this defense is going to come out just absolutely on fire tomorrow. They're chomping at the bit. They're like a racehorse in the gates, and they're just waiting for the gate to open, and it's going to be a secretariat, man. I'm telling you, I'm super fired up. Alan English, 34-24 Notre Dame. This will be the first game of the season where Notre Dame has more sacks than their opponent. Notre Dame will have its first 100-yard rushing performance of the season. I like that. I like that a lot. I think this Cincinnati team is very susceptible to the run. IU had a lot of opportunities in the run game. A lot of opportunities in the run game. Ty B, keeping it simple. Let's go. Yes, let's go. Jared Vineyard, have a good feeling about this game, much more so than headed into the Wisconsin game. My gut tells me Notre Dame is going to make this their statement win. Go Irish. I love where everybody's head is at. I love it. TJ, who believes Reese needs to move Cone? I assume that means move him out of the pocket, move things around. Agreed. I think that's one way that you fight back against an offensive line that isn't really doing what you needed to do, right? So I have no problem with that whatsoever. Get him out on a roll, get him out on a boot, get him, roll the pocket a little bit. I think that's fantastic. I love that. Ty B says, I know I'm feeding into the hype, but why do I want Drew Pine to start? Also, I want to crush Cincinnati. Well, I don't know. Why do you want Drew Pine to start? I mean, look, I love what I saw from Drew Pine. We've been talking about Drew Pine forever. I think he does a great job. I have no problem with Drew Pine whatsoever. And we said it, all week. If Jack Cohn isn't ready to go, I have complete faith in Drew Pine, and it doesn't change my opinion of how this game is going to go in any way. But if Jack Cohn's healthy, you start Jack Cohn. He's your starter. He's your guy. You roll with him until you can't roll with him anymore, right? Now, is there stuff that Jack Cohn needs to clean up? Yeah, he needs to not be as skittish in the pocket. I get that. But I also have a feeling that if Drew Pine was getting his brains beat in on a regular basis, he might be a little skittish in the pocket too. So, I think that's part of it. I think that's absolutely part of it. Let's see. We got another super chat from Logan Hale. I'm going to go down and grab it, Logan. Thank you very much, Logan. He says, "You demand, Vince. Any chance we see Rocco in the rotation this weekend? Kristofic has looked good, and maybe Rocco can give us some more beef up front." Logan, look, man, from what we saw in the spring, I mean, Rocco Spindler was working with the ones. He was the starting left guard during camp. And, during spring camp, during spring ball. I don't know how you fall from grace that fast during fall camp to where they played 9 offensive linemen and Rocco Spindler isn't one of them. I don't know. I would love to see him get a shot. It kind of seems like, I think somebody I don't want to take credit for this. I think somebody said something along these lines. But it's like, Jeff Quinn is like Oprah. You get a shot to play. You get a shot to play. You get a shot to play. I mean, 9 offensive linemen. That's nuts. And I realize you've had injuries and there's been different, scenarios. But 4 tackles, I think there's been 3 or 4 guards. The only position that hasn't really come off the field is Jarrett Patterson. Right? Apparently he doesn't get tired. I don't know what the thought process is there, but it's just, I would love to see him. I'll just say that. I would love to see Rocco Spindler. What have you got to lose at this point? After you watch the film and you watch these guards play, and you've got a kid here whose dad, I believe, played in the NFL, what have you got to lose? I don't see much. I honestly don't see what you've got to lose. So I would love to see Rocco, Logan. I'm with you. You and I are on the same page on that one. That's for sure. All right. G. Johnson says, if the Irish offense struggles in the first half under Cohn, do we see Pine in the second half? It's possible. It depends on how he's struggling, right? If he's struggling because he has no time in the pocket, and he's getting sacked because, as soon as he gets to the top of his drop, he's getting hammered. That's not a Jack Cohn problem, and I don't see how that would be any different with Drew Pine. I know people think that Drew Pine is so much more mobile than Jack Cohn. He's not that much more mobile. He's more mobile. I'll give him that, but he's not that much more mobile. And when the pocket's collapsing around you, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. So it just depends on how he's struggling. I don't know. I don't know. I would be interested to see that. If he's really, really struggling, I mean, just throwing the ball into the dirt, overthrowing, making bad reads, maybe throws a pick six, something along those lines, it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible. I think that they would have confidence in Drew Pine. I would. I would have confidence in him. There's always that, well, if we go to our backup, are we really upgrading kind of situation? But I think with I don't want to say popularity of Drew Pine, but the guys are going to play for him, and they're going to play hard for him. Not that they're not playing hard for Jack, but they're going to continue to play hard for Drew, so you don't lose anything there, which I think is important. So, yeah, I think that there's definitely a possibility for that to happen. I do. D-Rock wants to know who the conference officials are going to be for tomorrow's game. Well, usually the visitors bring the officials. So that would lead me to believe it's the athletic conference officials. I don't know that for a fact until I get up into the box and I see, they've got them all written down there at the bottom of the call sheet. Or the flip card that has all the rosters and the depth charts and stuff on it. So I would assume it's going to be the athletic conference officials, which would be huge for them. But I'm not 100% sure. So it'll either be them or the ACC. I mean, that Notre Dame obviously has a contract with the ACC. And so that's, who they would have if it's not the opposing team's conference. Jeremy Miller says, I think Saturday is important because coaches Kelly, Mickens, and Freeman all came from Cincinnati. Kelly's been here for over 10 years now. There's no excuse he shouldn't have the better team. No, look, it's Notre Dame versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati is not a Power 5 team. At least they're not until they get to the Big 12. And that doesn't necessarily mean that their roster gets so much turnover that they're automatically a Power 5 roster either. So, look, this is a very good team, okay? Cincinnati's probably the best team on Notre Dame's schedule. I don't know that anybody would disagree with that at the moment. Do they have the most talent? No. You can make a case for USC. You can make a case for Wisconsin. You can make a case for a lot of different schools that would have more talent, but are they the best team? Yeah. Are they the best coached? Probably right up there. And so there is no excuse. I completely agree with you, right? And if you dig a little bit deeper, there's guys on the strength staff that came from Cincinnati. There's people in the front office that came from Cincinnati. There's a lot of people that came from Cincinnati. And it's going to be there's a lot of storylines here, right? And then there's people that are on Cincinnati's roster that came from Notre Dame. So it's an important game. The relationships run deep. There's no question about it. So this is an emotional game for a lot of people too. But when you cut right down to it, yes, Notre Dame should absolutely win this game. Notre Dame versus any athletic conference or American Athletic Conference. I think I said athletic conference. The American Athletic Conference. Notre Dame versus any of them, they should be better. They should be. I mean, it's Notre Dame. They're a perennial top 10 team at this point. So yes, I completely agree with that, Jeremy. We got another super chat. I don't want to miss it. Craig Sebring, thank you, Craig. Really appreciate it. In all caps. I don't know if I'm supposed to yell this at you guys or not, but he says we need to make it loud for Didier and send a message to him that you don't talk trash when coming into our house. Go Irish. Obviously, that's the Ritter, the quarterback, who decided to say that it's not going to be very loud at Notre Dame Stadium. And I hope he's right. I mean, I hope that you're right, Craig, and that the people bring the noise, the funk to Notre Dame Stadium, and people get excited about it, man. I mean, look, this is a top 10 matchup, okay? I suppose we need to forget about the fact that they're from the American Athletic Conference, and look, it's a top 10 team. And if Notre Dame wins this game, it's a top 10 win. It's a big win. They're the underdog at home. This is a big win if they win. I think they're going to win, but it's still, what more do you want from Notre Dame? They were almost a touchdown dog in Chicago, won huge, right? And yes, the defense stepped up. The defense scored a bunch of points. I totally get that. But when you're making spreads, it's not, Notre Dame's offense that the spread is considered. It's the total team points, right? It's a team game. And they clearly covered the 6.5, right? And last time I checked, Notre Dame's a 1.5 point dog here. So if they win the game, man, good things are coming. Good things are coming, and we will continue to come to Notre Dame. I don't know how Brian does these shows solo. My mouth is already dry. All right. Let's see here. Tom Frawley says, what's the story on Walker Howard from Louisiana? Brian will answer that as soon as he gets in. He's taking care of some business. So he's leaving me solo until he gets back, which is totally cool because I'm hanging out with my IB family, and I'm very happy. Nathan Lytle, what's the likelihood that the offensive line actually takes the steps forward necessary to be solid this weekend? Look, we've seen incremental steps. We've seen incremental steps on the offensive line. And yes, we are looking for positive when we watch the film, okay? And we are not saying the bar is set high at this point when we talk about improvement from the offensive line. I feel like the bar is set so that a toddler could accidentally fall and waddle over the line, okay? Or waddle over the bar. But we have seen incremental improvement from the offensive line. The last 2 games, we've seen better fight from them, right? But the fundamentals are still lacking. So what's the likelihood that they take steps forward? I think they'll take steps forward. Are they going to take the necessary steps forward to be a decent line? Maybe. Hopefully. That'd be great. What's the likelihood? If I was like going to put it on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd put it at like a 4 for me because I just haven't seen enough proof that that's going to be the case. But I hope so, Nathan. There's talent here. That these guys don't live in a cave. Like, they know what people are saying. And if I'm in their shoes, yeah, man, it pissed me off. Like, I'm doing the best I can here. It's going to give me more drive to work a little harder, to do a little extra, do a little more, right? That's how competitors are. And you don't get a scholarship to go to the University of Notre Dame unless you're a competitor. So I got to think that these guys are taking it personally. I hope they are because they have what it takes to be an average offensive line. And if they're an average offensive line, this offense is going to take off like a rocket ship. I believe that, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. Craig Sebring has a prediction, 35-17 Notre Dame. Love it. Let's see. Tom, is Michael Carmody healthy? Yes, I believe he is healthy, and he will be getting reps on Saturday. So we'll see what that rotation looks like between him and Tosh Baker. We got another super chat, so I'm going to go down and find that one. John Klimek, what's up? Says, Nathan, if they actually step forward, that would be an improvement. Stop catching and punch, keep their base and drive. Right there. Couldn't have said it any better myself. Tell you what, I've said those words about 100,000 times to my high school offensive linemen, and I feel like I would love to get one practice in with the defense, with the Notre Dame offensive line, so I could yell about those things too. It seems so elementary. I'm with you, John. It seems so elementary that I would love to, see how things are going at practice. And if I'm not hearing what I think I should be hearing, I just want to be like, hey, Jeff, I got this. We're good here, man. Why don't you just go take a break? Take a water break. We're going to talk about some fundamentals. Okay, everybody in your stance. Okay, our first step, we're going to step and punch. We're going to, I just feel like it's such elementary stuff that I've done 100,000 times with 14, 15, 16-year-olds. But look, again, these guys are competitors. They want to be better. I hope we see some more of it today. Brian, my guy, what's up? I can't
believe you started without me. I'm so mad.
Hey, we got a schedule to keep, pal.
I know. I appreciate you. I appreciate you carrying the show while I was gone. So
no, it's all good.
One of the things about running a business is sometimes you actually have to run the business. So it's not just all fun and games and showing up for shows. So
yeah, right.
I appreciate everybody's patience. But yeah, I just kind of jumped in here, Vince, and I saw a comment from AJ. I don't know if you got to it. He said basically pointed out that they've ran more screens to Ben Skoranek last year or jet sweeps to Ben Skoranek last year than they've run to Braden Lindsey or Chris Tyree this year.
That's hilarious. So bad.
So bad.
We had a question earlier about the recruiting weekend and the quarterback from Louisiana. So
Walker Howard.
I will just let you kind of go with that. See if you've got any background on what he's doing on campus and what this weekend looks like.
Yeah, it's going to be so Walker Howard is a 2022 quarterback, so he's in the same class as Steve Angeli. Notre Dame obviously already has a quarterback in the 2022 class. What I've been able to gather is that this is something that's been going on for a while. Notre Dame's been recruiting for a while. My understanding, and I haven't got direct confirmation of this, but talking to a couple sources, it sounds like Notre Dame Steve Angeli knows that they've talked about bringing in a second quarterback, so this is not necessarily new to him.
And that's important, though. I mean, You got a kid in your class already. You got to at least give him the heads up as to what's going on. I mean, I think I like that from an integrity standpoint.
It's a must, because then you run the risk of not getting either one of them.
Right. Absolutely.
He is committed to LSU. His dad played at LSU. I'd be shocked if he doesn't go to LSU. I've heard a lot of people say that, well, they're going to fire their coach this offseason. I actually think that might help LSU's chances. You know, if they were to hire the hot names, Dave Aranda, Joe Brady's not coming back to college. Just forget that one. I've seen Lane Kiffin's name be thrown around, whatever. I think that would actually help their cause. But apparently Tommy Rees has been on him for a while. He's connected with the dad. The kid's coming up on an unofficial visit this weekend. I personally don't see it being a deal that they end up getting him. But I'll tell you what, I like the fact they're taking the swing. And I like Walker Howard. I don't have him as a 5-star, so I did the quarterback grades for SI All-American, most of them. There was a couple that John Garcia was adamant this guy's got to be higher. It's like, okay, no big deal. We had Walker Howard as a top 10 quarterback in the country in a solid, pretty solid quarterback class. Not as good as next year's, but pretty good. He ended up being a top 50 overall recruit. So, I mean, he's a good football player. Smaller guy, sort of got a Drew Pinish stature, body type and stature is the word I'm looking for. A little taller than Drew is. About 6'1", really athletic. That's the other thing. He can run, but he's not a runner per se. You know what I mean? Like, he will run, but he's not a runner. Big, strong arm. I mean, you see this little guy, he's like 6'1", 185. You're like, he's probably like like you think he's a Drew Pine type. Nope. He's got a hose. Ball placement accuracy needs some work, but he's a really talented kid. So take your shot. I mean, this is right. This is what we've been complaining about for years, right?
Yep.
Like, they don't even try. Oh, he's going to LSU. His dad went to LSU. We're not going to waste our time. Take your shot. If you don't get him, you don't get him. But you're definitely not going to get him if you don't try.
Yeah, exactly.
So I like it. And again, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they're going to flip him. But the fact is, he's visiting. And when a kid comes and visits
on his own dime. On his own dime.
Yeah, which means you still have the option of bringing him back for an official if things go well. I mean, you're in the game, right? Now, do I think they're going to get him? No, I don't, but they're certainly in the game. It's going to be a huge, huge weekend. And I'll tell you one thing I like about this, what Notre Dame has done this weekend. Other than Walker Howard and some commits, so Jalen Snead's going to be on campus this weekend. With I believe Josh Burnham and Nolan Ziegler are going to be on campus this weekend. Those are the ones that I've confirmed. Tom Loy has reported that the two in-state offensive linemen are also going to be on campus this weekend, in Joey Tenona and Ashton Craig. But what they've done is this is a 2023 weekend primarily, and I like that. And so 2022, the big weekend is going to be the USC night game. I like the idea that they're bringing in Xavier Nwankpa and Anthony Lucas and Hero Kanu and those guys in the USC game, and to make this one a 2023 game.
Okay.
Dante Moore is going to be on campus. Cardinal Tate's going to be on campus. Jalen Brown's going to be on campus. Those three right there, if Notre Dame were somehow able to pull that, that coup, that you're talking about 3 top 50 recruits right there. I mean, you're talking about a couple 5-star recruits right there. I mean, that is a program-changing group of players. There's going to be a couple offensive linemen on campus. Trying to think. Oh, Malik Muhammad's going to be on campus. Now, that one is a big one. Malik Muhammad is a cornerback from the Dallas area. He had transferred to IMG for the spring, came back to Dallas. He visited Notre Dame this summer. He's coming back this weekend. He is a top 75 recruit that is now making his second unofficial on his own dime visit to Notre Dame. If he shows up this weekend, that's going to tell me something, Vince, because why is he coming up to Notre Dame twice on his own dime if he's not real serious about Notre Dame?
Yeah.
So I really like that they're making a push there. Samuel Mpemba, who's a really athletic kid, could play tight end, DN. He's supposed to be up here this weekend. He's tweeted that he's going to be up here this weekend. And then, of course, at linebacker, you've got your dream offensive skill group on campus this weekend, right? Quarterback, receiver, and Dante Moore, Jalen Brown, and Carnell Tate. You've also got your dream linebacker class coming on campus this weekend in Drake Bowen, who's the in-state kid, and then, of course, Sonny Styles. Now, I think Notre Dame is a much better position with Sonny Styles than they are Drake Bowen. I think Drake Bowen is going to be a much tougher pull than people think. People think he's an in-state kid. He's not a born and raised family from Northwest Indiana kid. He is a kid that has strong Southern ties, and I think the Southern schools right now are in a good position. So Notre Dame's got a lot of work to do, but they're putting in the work. And I'll say this, they're not assuming they're going to get him because he's an in-state kid. Right. They're putting in the work, and that's the important thing for me. So, but, look, they're going to have the 2022 linebackers on campus this weekend with the exception of Junior Tuihalamaka. That's going to help kind of getting that bond. Nolan Ziegler played against Drake Bowen this year and dominated. So I think Nolan realizes, like, that's the lowest ranked linebacker recruit that Notre Dame has because they just dominated us. So I think that helps, and they connected a little bit after the game. So those are the big ones. Those are the big names this weekend. And look, I don't expect necessarily any commits this weekend, but you never know. I didn't necessarily expect Lorenzo Styles and Deion Colsey to commit, when they at the same stage when they visited for USC in 2019, and they both committed. So there's a chance that a couple kids could pop. I'm not predicting it. I don't think, I don't see it happening. I'm not predicting it, but I could see it happening, but I'm not predicting it. But if they do get a commitment this weekend, it would be – and then Caden Fegan, the kid from Illinois, that big 6'3", 220-pound kid that camped this summer is a 2023 kid, can play running back. Yeah. He's also going to be on campus this weekend. So, and that's a guy that Notre Dame staff definitely wants. So, huge 2023 recruiting weekend for Notre Dame this week. And then, of course, the Walker Howard visit.
We got a super chat. Brian, I assume you're down lower because you just joined, so I'm going to let you grab that. I'll stay up top where I'm at. This is from Lawrence Adams. Thank you, Lawrence. Really appreciate the super chat. Says Notre Dame shouldn't be a true top 10 with this, with as big of a weakness as this O-line is. Hopefully, Cincinnati is not a true top 10 either. Cincinnati looks like a smaller version of Florida State to me. Honestly, if we're talking defense, they are a more athletic version of what Wisconsin's defense is. That's how I see Cincinnati. They don't play it the same way, but it's similar tendencies and things that they do in the front seven to me. But
I think their secondary is a whole lot different. I think their box is similar.
Yes, the box is what I was
3-man plus 2 physical inside linebackers. That's similar, but they do a whole lot of different stuff on the back end.
Yeah. Yep. And look, I understand where you're coming from, Lawrence. I do. I totally get it because Notre Dame's offensive line has not been good. But find me 10 teams that don't have flaws because this year the flaws are abundant.
Yes,
with teams across the country who are normally top 10 teams. And so
Clemson's got a legitimate shot at being 2-3 after this weekend.
Yeah, and you got to have 10
at the top. If Phil Jurkovec wasn't hurt, I'd predict them to be 2-3.
I would have absolutely if Phil Jurkovec was healthy. But you got to have 10 at the top. So, is it a top 10 team maybe last year or the year before? Maybe not. But this year, I don't know that I can come up with 10 teams that are better, to be honest with you. Yeah. So believe me, I understand where you're coming from, Lawrence. This offensive line is lacking.
Yeah.
But
I think we are all lacking context. Right. That's my thing is. And look, this is something that you and I discussed during the summer, Vince. This was going to be a down year nationally for a lot of teams.
Correct.
Ohio State's flawed. We told you they were going to be flawed this offseason. Clemson's flawed. I told you, I've been telling people for months that Clemson was going to be flawed. And why are they going to be flawed? Because we said you've got an immobile quarterback behind a bad offensive line. And the other thing that I've criticized them for is they've recruited a bunch of cookie cutter receivers. And so now they don't have that little slot guy that can do damage when the offensive line's getting beat. In 4 games, DJ Uiagalelei, did I do it right? Uiagalelei.
Pretty good. Uiagalelei. Yeah, you're right.
He has yet to get to 200 yards passing. We're complaining about how Jack Cohn's only throwing for like 230 a game, the last couple games. He has yet to get to 200 yards passing.
So that's what he does. He doesn't scramble. He doesn't that's what he does.
I mean, I would not trade Notre Dame's offensive roster for Clemson's right now. And
Right.
People may disagree, but I mean, that's why I say you got to recruit to a certain style, and they just recruited a bunch of 5-stars. They weren't focusing as much as they used to on getting guys that fit what they're looking for.
Right. Absolutely.
So to me, Clemson, Oklahoma's flawed. Their offense has kind of been sputtering. I think I predict them to wake up a little bit against K-State tomorrow, and which I would have predicted differently if Skylar Thompson was playing the quarterback for Kansas State. But you look, they're struggling. Oklahoma has 3 wins over FBS teams by a combined 15 points. And we're complaining about Notre Dame, only beating Purdue by 14, right? Like, there's a lot of people dealing with this. Everybody's talking about how good Bama is because what they did to Miami. I think we now realize Miami sucks. That's one where I got wrong. I thought Miami was going to be good this year. I predicted them to go 9-3 this year. So, but they stink. And I just love how Virginia tried to give them that game last night on a silver platter, and Miami is like, nah, we're good. We're fine. We're fine. There's a lot of flawed teams this year, a lot of flawed teams. And so that's why we're kind of ticked that the Notre Dame offense, because that should never be a flaw for Notre Dame.
Right.
I understand that some years your O-line's not going to be great. Totally fine with that.
Right.
But it should never be bad.
Yeah.
And it has been bad.
Yep.
And that's a question. And I did want to bring up something kind of along this lines. William Perry said, does Jeff Quinn not get credit for how good of an offensive lineman we had the last couple years? I asked because there's a lot of chatter about fans not happy with him. The offensive line was not good the last couple of years. The offensive line was good last year.
Right.
Brian Kelly finally admitted last year that the 2019 offensive line wasn't good. And they didn't start getting good-ish until late in the year when a couple guys were hurt and they were playing crappy teams. But the offensive line in 2019 was not good. And we talked about that. And what the 2018 offensive line was solid. It wasn't special. It wasn't great. It was just kind of okay. They weren't like a finalist for the Joe Moore Award. What was different last year? Number one, you had 140 career starts coming back. Okay. So sometimes you can't even mess that up. Number two, you had a very heavy Harry Hiestand, Chris Watt influence, and yes. Harry Hiestand gets a lot more, and there's only so much I can say publicly, but Harry Hiestand should get a lot more credit for last year's offensive line than people realize, and I'm talking direct credit.
Mm-hmm.
So Vince, you kind of know what I'm talking about. So no, I don't give him a ton of credit, and that's why Vince and I said this offseason, we're going to learn a lot about just how good Jeff Quinn is, because hey, you know what's different about this year's line than last year's line? There's no Harry Hiestand recruits on it really anymore. Josh Lugg's the only one. Every other kid in this rotation right now was a Jeff Quinn recruit or a transfer. Last year's team was dominated by 4 starters that were Harry Hiestand recruits that Harry Hiestand coached and developed and still has a connection with to this day.
Right.
So that's why I don't give him as much credit. But that's the thing that's holding Notre Dame back. So I didn't expect them to have a great line this year. We expect them to be solid.
I didn't expect
they're not even that. The fact that there's a long way to go to get to solid is a change. Now, I'll say this: if you are a member of the Irish Breakdown message board, which a lot of you are, then you've probably seen this. And if you haven't seen this, it's because you're not paying close enough attention to the message board. So get your money's worth. But I put some insider nuggets on the board last night. One of them being that, talking to a couple sources last night, one of which who has been very critical of the offensive line, said that this was the best week the offensive line has had. And not just going against scout team, but when they're doing one-on-ones against the starting defensive players, this was the best week they've had in as far as production. So hopefully that light goes on. And as you and I said earlier in the week, Vince, there's going to come a game where it clicks and they finally figure it out. Yeah, I just hope it's not until after they catch an L. When they do, this team is going to crush people because let me make this point. Clemson's offensive line has been abysmal, and it's why they're 2-2 with needing a goal line stop at the end of the game against Georgia Tech to beat Georgia Tech, who lost to Northern Illinois. Notre Dame is having similar offensive line problems, and they're undefeated. And their last 2 games against Power 5 teams, they've won by 13. 2 Big Ten teams, they've won by 13 and 28. The other Power 5 team they played, yes, it was a 3-point win in overtime, but let's not forget that Notre Dame was up 38-20 at one point in time. Does anyone think that if Notre Dame and Florida State played now, and it's kind of the opposite of what we thought going into the season, if they played now, that Notre Dame wouldn't win by 30 or 40? Right. With the way Notre Dame's defense is playing now, you're not going to see the mistakes they made in game 1. So Jeff Quinn's got to figure some stuff out. I hope he does, because he is going to be the key to whether or not Notre Dame is going to be not only a playoff team, but a team that can make a run at a title, because the defense is getting there.
No
the
doubt.
Skill players are there. There's some adjustments Tommy Rees has to make, but it's all going to come down to Jeff Quinn, and can he figure it out? And hopefully he does. And if he does, they'll get credit for that, rightfully so.
Sure.
But it's going to be up to him.
I think we have another super chat down there, Brian.
Yes, we do. From Brandon.
Yes, thank you. Brandon, thank you very much for the super chat. It says, how is Cincinnati's defense run differently now under Tressel than it was under Freeman? I think that's a really, really good question, Brian. And you've broken it down a little bit more closely than I have, so I will defer to you on this. But what I will say is there's not a whole lot of difference, but you go ahead.
No, I mean, I think you already answered the question. There's some like minor calls here, I've noticed they're not playing quite as aggressively all the time in coverage as they did last year, but still pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
I'd say I've noticed a lot more inside fires this year, just from a volume standpoint, but the schemes are the same. There's just different emphasis.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've noticed is there's not as much versatility within how much they line up. Like, they've been pretty much exclusively kind of a 3-down team this year.
Yeah.
Whereas last year, they would even against non-Georgia teams, they would mix things up. I'm curious if they're going to mix things up Saturday or not. But so far, there hasn't been a lot of differences, other than just they've been kind of a 3-3-5 team a lot more than they were last year.
Fair enough. We got
That's a good
one more
question.
super chat to get to before we can start heading back up to where I'm at.
John A1, my guy.
John. What's up, John? Happy Friday, IB. Happy Friday to you, John. If you're Notre Dame, what's the one-on-one matchup you want to create with Braden Lindsey?
Any matchup against a field defender in which Braden Lindsey is on the move before the snap.
I like that.
And what I mean by that is that Kobe Bryant, is a big physical kid that I think can jam Braden at the line, and we've seen people do that. That's why if I'm Notre Dame, I'm getting him on the move. I'm motioning him. I'm putting him in the slot.
Put him in a bunch.
In a stack. Motion him across outside, and get him moving. And so if Braden Lindsey can get clean releases, he's faster than anybody that Cincinnati's going to throw at him.
Yep.
So it's the field guys. Now, if you can figure out ways to get him isolated against a safety, that would be ideal. We haven't seen that kind of creativity from Tommy Rees yet, but those are some things I would like to see in this particular matchup. John, that's a very good question.
All right, back to the top. Tommy Guns. This one cracks me up. Vince, how far away are we from being able to afford you full-time? Pretty far away.
Vince has 5 kids, y'all.
Yeah.
And he works for the government, okay?
Insurance alone would be expensive. So.
Yeah.
But no, I love where your head's at, Tommy. I just took some kids to a leadership conference, and of course I was sitting in, I was listening and all that. And when you have a goal, you got to write down, it's tangible things to get to those goals. That's one of our goals. I mean, that's legitimately one of our goals. It's just a little bit down the road. It's down the road.
I'll say this: we're further along than we thought we would be.
Absolutely.
So, like when I launched Irish Breakdown, I went to Vince, who was replacing me at BGI, and I said, look, when your contract is over, you know what you're doing, right? You're coming over.
I was like, can we do it now?
Yeah. So it was always the goal to try to get Vince and I together. I mean, we've been friends for a decade. That was always the goal for me, was to bring Vince on. And the goal then, I mean, how many times have we sat in Beef O'Brady's and had business meetings where I kind of go over what my vision is and, what it would take. And we're way ahead of schedule, way ahead of schedule. But the schedule was probably, 10 years. It was probably, 5-10 years at least. We're ahead of schedule, but we're a long way.
Yeah.
We're a long way there.
Yeah. And another full-time person is tough.
Especially a full-time person with 5 kids. Single dude, I don't, I could work some different things out with, but
that's true. That's true.
Yeah. Vince is expensive. Hey, Vince, you want to come work with me? You can't afford me. Okay. Robert has
like
a question.
A big time in yours.
I've said that before to people. Robert says, do you think Tyree gets more touches this game after the kickoff return? I sure hope so. It shouldn't have taken that kickoff return to Dermot now, Robert. But
no.
I mean, Vince has already given you on the prairie.
Come on, please. Come on now. Yes, he should get more touches. Yes, absolutely, 100%.
If they go through this game and he only has 3 touches, the only way I'm not crushing the offensive staff is if 2 of them go for like 60-yard touchdowns.
Yeah, right. They're like, okay, we can take a rest.
Yeah, that's it. And we have another one from Connor Nepper. Thank you, and thank you, Robert, for that super chat very, very much. Hope you enjoyed the game last week with your dad, by the way. Or was it 2 weeks ago with your dad? Robert gave us a super chat and let us know he was going to the game with his dad.
Yeah,
so
right.
I hope that was a lot of fun.
Right.
And then Connor Nepper.
Connor, thank you very much as well. He says, let's go, IB Nation. We need all 80,000 screaming tomorrow, 35-17. Hey, that's what the home crowd's supposed to do, right? You're supposed to be fired up, supposed to make it happen. And hopefully that is the case for sure. For sure. All right, back to where we are. Tavis McKay says, I want to see a few screenplays this week to use Cincinnati's aggressiveness against them. However, in your opinion, what is the most concerning thing when it comes to running screenplays this week? Well, I mean, anytime you're running screenplays, you have to make sure that they're not bailing in coverage, right? Because if they're bailing in coverage and they're only bringing 3, your screen probably not going to be all that effective. You need to understand what the defense is trying to do, and you do a screen against what they're trying to do. But even with that said, there are screens that you can do, some of the tunnel screen action, some of the other things that you do on the outside where you get Notre Dame's guys in space against, anybody's guys, and that includes Cincinnati's guys. I still like Notre Dame's chances because you're getting the ball in the hands of a guy that's moving already with blockers out in front. And whether they're dropping in coverage or not, I still like Notre Dame's chances. So is there, look, there's what's the word I'm looking for here? There's a chance you're taking no matter what play you run. There's always a chance you're going to take that it's not going to work or whatever. Anytime you throw the ball, just ask Lou Holtz, 2 of the 3 things, are bad or whatever. And you're throwing the ball with a screen, but I still want them to do it. I really do. I don't think that they've utilized it enough.
I think they can run screens against off coverage, press coverage. Yeah. To your point, Vince, it's what screen do you run? If you're playing off coverage, I'm bubbling you. I'm throwing look screens and letting guys. What you don't want to do is necessarily run a tunnel screen against 8 dropping because they're just going to see it and rally to the ball and blow it up, right? My biggest concern is like kind of what Vince said is, okay, are you running the right screens in the right situations? My second biggest concern is perimeter blocking. It has not been in the screen game this year. And, so if you're not going to, if certain guys aren't going to be getting the ball a ton, the least they can do is block,
Absolutely.
But it's just about committing to it. That's really what it boils down to. You just have to commit to it. Like if you're dropping 8, give me a swing screen to Chris Tyree or Cardin Williams where you've got 2 blockers out in space blocking. Make those guys pursue from distance. So it's just about committing to it. And part of me just really feels like as I watch more and more of Tommy Rees's offense, my criticism is he's so focused on being a pro-style coach that he's missing out on stuff that really works in college. And he needs to realize, it's good to have that pro-style stuff and be smart and all that, but these are still college kids, and it's still about your dudes being better than their dudes.
Right.
And the fact – I love the point that somebody made. The fact that Ben Skoranek got more carries last year than, on jet sweeps and what Braden Lindsey's gotten this year. Again, it just isn't like us theoretically saying, well, he's fast, so I think he should be able to do it. We've seen him do it. He scored a 50-yard touchdown against USC on a reverse. He scored a 60-yard –
outran everybody.
Yeah, exactly. He scored a 60-yard jet sweep shovel pass against Boston College. He scored against New Mexico on a look screen. So, yeah.
I'm with you. Irish for life loves being the underdog. Play that disrespect card. Yeah, man, it's fantastic. Play with that chip on your shoulder, man. I'm telling you, play with that chip. Tommy Guns, this would have been a great week for a primetime 8 p.m. kickoff. Sometimes I wish that they could flex some things with the NBC schedule because am I looking forward to watching North Carolina at 8 o'clock at this point? Probably not. But, it is what it is. It's going to be a great day to be Irish no matter what time the game's played. So
I kind of like the big games being afternoon games personally. mean, think about all the great Notre Dame games in history that we've seen growing
They
up.
weren't night
Vince,
games.
the
Yeah,
'88 game,
absolutely. Yeah.
the one, the one big, huge game that I remember growing up that was a night game was the '88 Notre Dame Michigan game at the beginning of the season. That was a night game.
Mm-hmm.
But Florida State was a day game. I like the idea of having a big game kind of being in that middle of the afternoon thing. You know, I personally like it. So
Yep.
I don't mind. I don't mind that it's a day game.
Ty B, Indy wearing a green jersey this week. I actually love the ones they wore in 07 against USC.
Yeah, but what happened in that
The
game?
outcome was terrible, but it had
That's
nothing
my
to do
first ever Notre Dame game.
It had nothing to do with what they were wearing. They just got beat.
Those are but if you're going to get your butt kicked, don't look ugly doing it. Like literally physically ugly because of the uniforms. I mean, you know, at least look sharp. Hey, we got our butts kicked, but we look good. We look good. Look like crap.
Yeah, it's what it is. You want to go grab that one?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
SJ. Thank you very much, SJ. Really appreciate it. Just wondering, you guys were able to enjoy when watching Notre Dame games like everybody else. I imagine you were jotting down something. Many thanks. I'm doing a lot of jotting down. I'm writing down every play and kind of my thoughts on every play and, you know, the scenarios and stuff like that. But it doesn't take away from my enjoyment. I told the story about when I saw Chris Tyree, that hole open up on the kick return, man, my arms went whoop, like straight up. Like I was that guy in the press box. I was not audible, so I was not in trouble. I'm still a fan deep down, even though I'm writing down my notes and everything, still a fan.
I'll be honest, last week was the first time I've cheered watching a game in a long time.
Yeah.
Because Angela was with me, and when Chris Tyree took that kickback, I high-fived my wife. I haven't responded like that in a long time. And so I'll be honest with you, Vince, not being in the press box this year has made me enjoy games more.
I believe it.
Just because even though I'm working, I'm at least able to enjoy the environment more. Because, you know, I was at the first couple games and won't be at this one. But, you know, it has made me enjoy it more, to be honest with you.
It's almost, I
don't have to tamp down my, you know, because you become conditioned to certain things, right?
100%.
I mean, become conditioned to not being able to respond. And, you know, fortunately, my wife doesn't punch me in the leg when something good happens, like some dude I know that I used to sit by at games. This guy over here, right? That guy. So, but no, I have enjoyed games more this year than I have in the past. I'll be honest. And it's not just because they're winning, because they've won in the past. It's just, I think I've deprogrammed myself of the whole be quiet, don't show emotion.
It's true though, because you do get programmed, and like when I go watch my kid, I don't cheer. Like I just sit there and I get annoyed with other people. Like you just become programmed not to do it, and it kind of stinks. Let's see here. Tommy Gunn says playing against the best team in Ohio on Saturday, which
he ain't wrong.
I was gonna
say
rankings
wise, he's not wrong.
Yeah, right. DJ Wilson, I don't understand the betting line. Notre Dame at home against an AAC team. Are you kidding me?
We said the same thing last week.
I'm with you, man. 2 weeks in a row. I don't get it. I really don't get it. And the mortgage is on the line this week too. So I'm joking, but I don't get it either. I really don't understand it. Benj 1801. Did the O-line play better in the second half against Wisconsin, or was it more of the same?
Fourth quarter, they played better. I think. I felt they did. Fourth quarter, not early. People say, oh, the offensive line was better when Drew Pine came in. No, they still gave up a sack that caused a fumble.
It caused them to go.
I mean, Drew Pine got sacked in a quarter. I mean, he played basically a quarter of football and got sacked twice.
Yeah, right.
You know, so let's not act like, oh, it's all Jack Cohn. You know, he holds on to the ball too long. Okay, whatever. You know, but I thought the fourth quarter, after they took the lead, I thought they were more physical. They were getting a little bit more of a push. I think they wore Wisconsin down a little bit. You know, that's why I feel like, you know, part of me feels like, okay, if they can just kind of carry that, and they still weren't good. They still were giving up run throughs. I mean, they still weren't good, but at least they were being physical and working together a little bit. And it's like, that's all you need, right? I mean, it's all you need.
Yeah. Irish for life. God bless IB Nation. I pray you all well. We right back at you.
Yeah.
Domer Grizz says, happy Friday. Why do you think Cohn has been underthrowing his deep balls to Lindsey? Is he not reading it early enough, unable to step into the throw in a collapsing pocket? Arm strength? Thanks.
Yes. No, I mean, I think he's not getting the ball out soon enough, right? Yeah. He's double hitching. I think part of that is at times the pocket, but at times he's just double hitching and he's aiming it. I think that's the thing is, and arm strength, he can't afford to aim those throws. He's got to do what he did to Avery Davis and just launch that sucker and let Braden. I would much rather you overthrow Braden Lindsey than underthrow him. Because here's the thing, Kevin Austin, I'd say the exact opposite for. Because I feel like Kevin could go win those contested throws.
He'll win the 50-50 ball.
Right.
Yeah.
Braden Lindsey's not. He nor should you ask him to.
It's not his game.
How many times did they ask Will Fuller to do that? It's not his game.
Right.
I say, look, drop back, hit your drop, and launch it out there. Let Braden run underneath it. That's going to be the key. But I think it's a lot about just Braden runs at a different speed than everybody else, and Jack's got to let her rip. That's what I believe it boils down to. It's a very good question.
All right. Jacob C. says the O-line is almost there. Getting the younger guys to be more consistent is key. That takes experience, and each game counts towards that. Go Irish.
What younger guys? What younger guys are we talking about? There's one position that has younger players. One.
Left tackle.
They have a 24-year-old sixth-year senior who's been bad.
Really?
They have a fifth-year senior who's been like worse than he was 2 years ago when he started 5 games. Right? Zeke Correll's a junior in college. Robert Hainsey was a 3-year starter by the time he was a junior in college, right? Like, come on. This isn't about youth. Right. And do I think they're almost there? I hope so. Almost, but what does almost there mean? Like almost there to being competent? Because that's the next step, right?
Yeah, right.
So,
I'm with you.
It's not about youth, Jacob. Don't buy the Brian Kelly spin. Please don't buy the Brian Kelly spin. That's the thing that drives me the most nuts. Yes, they got to work at getting better, but you know what? You have a defense where everybody over there was learning a brand new defense.
Right.
Guys stepping into new roles. J.D. Bertrand's never played. I mean, is J.D. Bertrand any less experienced than freaking Zeke Correll? No. And look what he's done. You know what I mean? And they've gotten better each and every week because they're coached well, because they have coaches that focus on fundamentals, not scheme. That's the difference. I don't know why I got so fired up on that one, Jacob.
I don't know, but you did. But
it's not at you, Jacob. It's just the fact that Brian Kelly keeps pushing this, and you got a 6th-year senior, a 5th-year senior, a senior, a junior in your starting lineup, all who have started at least 2 games before. If Zeke Correll played this year like he did last year against Alabama, he'd be good.
Exactly. Yep. All right, Brian. I got a
super chat right here.
Thanks, Ray. Really appreciate it. IB rules. There's a ton of teachers out today, so I have to get going a little early, and I apologize.
Where'd you leave off, Vince? I don't think I'm close.
I don't think you are either. If you go all the way to the top, what time are you at?
12:59.
Okay, I'll take some screenshots and send them to you.
Okay. All right. Now, are you actually leaving right now? Like, are you going to be able to pull a couple of those up while you're doing some stuff?
I can pull them up for a minute. Yeah, I'll do that, and then whatever I don't get to, I'll screenshot for you.
Okay. Thanks, buddy.
Everybody. Enjoy tomorrow. I'm telling you, I said it at the top of the show. Feeling really good about tomorrow, man.
He ain't wrong.
I said it out loud. I'm like, I don't know how he does it. I'm already getting parched.
He ain't wrong. Teamwork, baby.
Domer.
Driscoll household's all about teamwork.
Domer, you nailed it, buddy. I love that. That is fantastic.
Right.
I love that. All right, guys. I will see you guys
carrying
later.
it today, Vince. Appreciate you.
No problem.
All right, so Vince is going to get some more questions here. We're going to get as many as we can before he has to go. Joel Gallego says, ready to see Freeman dial it up on Ritter early with all the trash talk floating around. Conversely, ready to see a great competitive game, but ultimately my prediction, Notre Dame 28, Cincinnati 14. I like it. That's close to mine. I was 27-16. So we're close, Joel. We're close. RJG Irving, many high school level teams having O-line issues this year. Many high level teams, I think I said high school level teams. Many high-level teams having O-line issues this year. Our defense is just better at our best athletes opting for defense, or our coaches changing technique and failing. I honestly don't know. I know that that is happening in some places. I know Oklahoma's having some struggles, but again, their struggles are more about, I don't think the guys that are playing at Oklahoma right now are as good as guys in the past, but their struggles are a whole lot different than Notre Dame's. If Notre Dame was rushing for the yards that Oklahoma was rushing before, they'd be scoring like 45 points a game. Notre Dame's line has been bad. Clemson's line's never been that good, and they were not good last year. And this is what we talked about this summer. They were bad last year. I think Coach Caldwell's been there a long time. I think he's a good old boy. I like Coach Caldwell. I've sat in clinics where he's talked before. I just think he just isn't I just sometimes look, this happens, right? Coaches have shelf lives where the message just doesn't work anymore. And I think that's been kind of coming at Clemson for a while. And I think again, they went away from recruiting what got them there. They used to recruit these 3-star kids with upside that were real tough and hungry. They started recruiting more of these 4-star. I'll be willing to bet you their current offensive line has more highly ranked kids in it than the 2016 or 2018 offensive lines. But they went away from recruiting the kind of kids that got them there. I think that's true at a lot of positions for Clemson. Irish for Life, will Brendan Clark ever get a chance to play? Do you think he transfers after 3 years when he has his degree? No, I don't think he's ever going to play at Notre Dame unless there's like crazy injuries. He's not even healthy enough to play right now. Do I think he'll transfer? I honestly don't know. I don't really like to predict that. If I were him, I would, just because I'd get my degree, and if he does want to play, but I don't know if he's going to be healthy enough to play. His knee injury is supposedly pretty bad, so I don't know how that's going to go. Question, Vince, you talked about cone and drop backs besides the different step drops. What about moving the pocket? Don't mean all rollouts. Look, TJ, Vince and I have talked about this during the whole last few weeks. Is I'm not a believer in just boot and roll out all game, right? Which you said that's not what you're talking about. But I am a firm believer that in most offenses you cannot just have your quarterback sitting behind the center the whole game. Because if I'm a defense and I always know where the quarterback's going to be, then it's a lot easier for me to design my schemes. As, hey, look, we're gonna do this. I think when they move the pocket, look, the pass game needs to be a combination of screens, quicks, drops, play actions from the pocket. Then they need to have some bootlegs, nakeds and bootlegs, and then they need to have a few sprint outs in certain situations where you're using motion to maybe get a leverage. You sprint out real quick and you get that ball out quickly. Or you fake that and then throw something different. But yes, I'm a big believer in mixing up the pocket. And I was a believer in that as a quarterback too. I mean, I always felt like if I got a bootleg, there was a good chance I wasn't actually going to get hit on that particular play. So, of course, my dumb butt, I would start scrambling around and stuff and then still get hit anyway, but whatever. Irish Cubby, biggest game on the schedule this year. If they have been holding stuff back on offense, this is a game to let it go. Yeah, okay, so that's the nice thing is after this game, we don't have to hear about people asking if they're holding stuff back anymore because they're not. Well, we're holding it back for the Stanford game. You know what I mean? Like, if that is happening, and I don't think that it is, although Vince is hopeful. I know he said yesterday he's kind of, he's crossing his fingers hoping that they were holding some stuff back. But you're absolutely right, Irish Cubby. This will be the week that we see it. This would be the game they've been holding it back for. Which, knowing Brian Kelly, they pulled out some stuff for the field for playing BC last year that I wish they would have done earlier. He's kind of petty like that, which I kind of dig. I could see them kind of holding some stuff back for the Cincinnati game because he's like, there's no way in heck I'm losing to Cincinnati. No way in heck he wants to lose to Cincinnati. I'll pull these couple super chats up here real quick. William Watson Weatherberger. That's an awesome name. Thank you for the super chat. That is so great. How would an in-season position coach firing work? Who would take over the position? Would it come at the expense of other rooms? No, usually they would just put like a GA, or they would like maybe move like, I don't know if John McNulty can coach it. I would imagine he probably could, but him and the GA could do it. And then they'd have one of the other GAs take over tight ends and things like that. But barring some sort of ethical problem, Brian Kelly's not firing any assistant coaches this year, nor should he. I'm not a believer in firing coaches in the season. I'm definitely not a believer in firing coaches during the season when you're winning. Stuff needs to get fixed. Firing Jeff Quinn in week 4, that's not the answer. Getting Jeff Quinn some help during the season, that's the answer, not firing him. And Patrick says, with a huge super chat, appreciate you, Patrick. I apologize for my absence this month. My sister passed. Oh, man. My sister passed away, and I've had a real tough time. If the IB family can say a prayer for my sister, Derisa, I would appreciate it. She will be with the Irish on Saturday. Hey, man, I'm really sorry to hear that, Patrick. I'm sorry to hear that, man. We'll be praying for her, but we'll be praying for you and your whole family, man. Just shoot me an email, right? And you know that your IB family's there with you and there for you. No question about it, buddy. We got your back on that. But we'll definitely be praying for you, Patrick. Definitely praying. And you're already seeing it, buddy. You're already seeing it. We got your back. Okay, so just shoot me an email, Brian@irishbreakdown.com. If there's anything you need, Patrick, you just let me know. Okay. I got bumped again, Vince, so I'm down to 109. You got a couple more to pull up. All right. Looks like Vince has sent me some screenshots. I'm going to try to get to some of these. All right. Got one from Matt H. If Cincinnati gets down like they did against IU, this defense is going to be licking its chops after last week. I agree. Jordan Schreiber has this game being 28-7 in favor of Notre Dame. Got a couple more here. Gideon Rosa, 34-17 Notre Dame. If Kyron Williams rushes for more than 100 yards, we win this game. If Kyron Williams rushes for more than 100 yards, Notre Dame is going to win this game by 3 touchdowns. I was talking with a buddy of mine who is on the Notre Dame beat today, and we were kind of joking, like, I'd be thrilled for like 60. If they just got the 60 yards for Kyron Williams, I feel like this game would be a rout. But, yeah, if he goes for 100 yards, they'll win this game convincingly, in my opinion. Which now that I say that, he's going to rush for 140 and they're going to score 10 points. That just kind of seems how it always kind of goes. Bang 1801. The players have to hear all that noise coming from Cincinnati players. Defense is going to be flying. Agreed. Jeff Fluke, if the line keeps playing the same way, do you think Kyron Williams' return? I think his draft value might take a hit. I think you could look at it the other way, Jeff, and that is, would he want to come back and play behind this offensive line? I don't think he would. I wouldn't. Ryan Gavin, can you explain the role of the Viper position and what characteristics good Viper would have? That's a good one, Ryan. This is one of those questions that we missed. That Vince took some screenshots so we could try to get as many of them as possible. So the Viper is basically a weak side defensive end in old school form. More specific to Notre Dame, it's the boundary defensive end. Your Viper needs to be good at 2 things for sure. Number one, he has to be physical enough to set the edge effectively in the run game. When teams run at him, he needs to be able to either force a bounce, which a bounce into the boundary is great because you've got the sideline there, or he's got to be able to aggressively take on a block and force a quick cutback. So you have to be strong enough to do that. They need a guy that can rush the quarterback. So you have a guy that's got some twitchiness to him, ideally. A guy that can kind of come off some burst, but also enough power to power rush because you just can't speed rush all the time. And Notre Dame would like a Viper that also has enough athleticism and instincts as a player to drop into coverage. They would like a guy that can kind of jump underneath curl routes into the boundary, jump underneath quick game, quick outs and deep outs and things like that. That's good enough to do that. But, it's really essentially an old school weak side end. Although, as I said, it's not technically weak side anymore. It's more boundary. So that is basically what a Viper is. And one thing that Notre Dame specifically likes, and this isn't necessarily a requirement for a Viper in theory, but it's something that Notre Dame really likes, which I understand, is they really like length. And I think in the modern game, length has become even more important than it used to be because of the fact that so much of offenses nowadays is the ball coming out quickly. Screens, bubbles, quick game, RPOs. A lot of this is the ball coming out quickly. And so you have, you can really become a three-way threat if you're 6'5", 6'6" with really long arms. And that is number one as a pass rusher. Number two is a run defender. But number three is when they get the ball out quickly, you've got that length to get your hands up and get into throwing zones. And when you look at some of the young players that Notre Dame has recruited, obviously you've got Foskey, but even Jason Onye, you look at Alexander Ahrensberger, Will Schweitzer, they're all really long. Riley Mills is really long. The upcoming class, Tyson Ford, is really long. Aiden Gabera is really long. Anthony Lucas is long. Hero Canoe is long. Keon Keeley is freakishly long. Brendan Vernon is long. They love length. And I think that's smart, especially in today's game. I don't think you have to be long. Dalen Hayes wasn't super long, but it helps if you are, especially in today's game, in my opinion. And that's one of the things that made Adi Tagumba Ogundeji so long. You just couldn't get into his body when his technique was right because he was so strong and long that he could keep you off of his body. Tom Balort says, actually give me any of our QBs just for the love of God. Let's see some type of improvement up front. I agree. Christopher Jenkins says 100% agree. Vince, I believe we'd see Pine react negatively as well if he had gotten consistently mauled under center like Cone. I imagine that's a conversation we were having before. Paul Rose has been a busy week and haven't looked at any updates. Is Carmody back at left tackle or Baker? So I don't know who's going to start, to be honest with you. Brian Kelly said that Tosh Baker is going to be back, or that Michael Carmody is going to be back, but it didn't sound like he's going to be playing full time, and I don't know if that means he's still going to start. So I don't have an answer for you on that. TJ0311, I would do all I could to help the O-line when they struggled, shift the pocket a bit, prevent inside moves with chips. They've been trying the chips. The problem is that the offensive line doesn't seem to understand what to do when that happens. That's been the problem. Like they chipped, like if you go back and watch like the first play against Purdue, I think it was, where they put Kyron Williams outside and had him double up on the end, they still allowed a free rusher right up the middle because what they were doing with the line protection didn't match having a back on the edge. It made no sense. It's been a very unsound performance as well, beyond just guys making mistakes with their technique and such. And that's something that's got to get cleaned up like now. There's no excuse for that. That's not we haven't played enough. No, it's a schematic problem. Neil Wachter, I'd hoping to open the game with a heavy run, try and establish physicality early with some extra blockers to try and wear Cincinnati's defense and to show that we can give the O-line early confidence. I don't like that at all, Neil. I'm going to be honest with you, because to do that, you're going away from what got you here and you're going away from your strengths. With all due respect to George Takis or Kane Barong or Mitchell Evans or Joe Alt, none of them are as good as Chris Tyree or Notre Dame's third receiver. None of them are. So every time you put two tight ends or extra blockers on the field, you're taking away from what makes you good. And to me, you're playing right into Cincinnati's hands. One of the issues I had with last week's game plan, and I'm gonna have a video coming out today for premium board members. But one of the issues I had was they were very 12 personnel run last week, and so they did what you said to do. All but two of their run plays last week were 12 personnel runs. Only ran two run plays out of 11 personnel. So they were putting extra blockers, and they still weren't running the ball. They're just not good enough to wear people down that way, in my opinion, to where you're still going to score points. You may run more effectively, but you're not going to be as good offensively. You may score just as many points, if not fewer points. Because right now, the strength of your football team is throwing the ball, and it's your perimeter players. It's Michael Mayer, it's Kevin Austin, it's Avery Davis, it's Kyron Williams in the pass game, it's Chris Tyree in the pass game, it's Braden Lindsey. That's the strength of your team right now, not running the football. So you want to do that against a team that stinks to try to get yourself going, that's fine. But when you're playing this game, you got to build to your strengths, in my opinion. Anthony Young says the home win streak will stay alive. No worries. Go Irish. Gideon Rosa. I know this is jumping ahead, but do you think Pine is a starter next year considering Buckner? It's too early for me to worry about that. I think Tyler Buckner is going to be hard to keep off the field, but I'm not betting against Drew Pine. But I think Tyler Buckner is going to be very hard to keep off the field next season. We have another super chat down here. Travis Singleton, thank you for that, Travis, very, very much. Let's win one on Saturday for Derissa. Go Irish, man. That's awesome. That's awesome, Travis. And I hope that Patrick is still in the chat, that he can see that and see the support he's getting from his Irish Breakdown family, for sure. All righty. I'm going to go down to some more questions here. Hopefully get some more. Kevin Carter said, would it create a QB controversy for the 2022 class of Howard ends up wanting to commit? I think it could. I mean, it's one thing for Steve Angeli to say, hey, I know you're talking about this, but it's another thing when a kid that's a 5-star recruit commits. I mean, is he really going to believe that they're recruiting Walker Howard to sit behind him? I think Steve Angeli's a great kid, and I think he's very pro Notre Dame. But I don't care how pro Notre Dame you are. I think you're going to think twice if that were to happen. But I would take that trade if I was Notre Dame, to be honest with you. Damian Blue, the Notre Dame defense is becoming dominant. They get better and better every week. Marcus Freeman has a great scheme. Offense will roll 38-17. I could see that. If the offense plays well, yes, I could definitely see that. Absolutely could see that. See, this questions went away. Looks like my iMessage went away here real quick. Let me get that back here. I want to get to some more of these questions. All right. Herney777 says, I just think Pine is more decisive, not a better passer. Again, more decisive because he hasn't dealt with the barrage of hits that Jack Cohn has. That was the whole reason Jack Cohn won the starting job. And that's what made Jack Cohn so good against Florida State and at times against Toledo was that he gets rid of the ball quickly. But after a while, teams see that you're getting rid of the ball quickly and they put pressure on you. And again, let's not act like what Drew Pine did on Saturday is some thing that we've never seen from Notre Dame before with Jack Cohn. I mean, Jack Cohn went 8 of 8 for 164 yards and 2 touchdowns in a quarter against Florida State. We saw what he did at the end of the game against Toledo, where he got rid of the ball quickly for big plays. He went 6 of 9 for 137 yards and a touchdown in the second half against Purdue, and would have been 7 of 9 for about 176 yards with 2 touchdowns if Braden Lindsey doesn't drop a clear touchdown. So, look, Drew did his job. He did his job, but you don't know. I've argued about this for months on here. This is why teams make mistakes when they give a lot of money to backup quarterbacks because there's less pressure on you as the backup quarterback. Teams don't have film on you. You come in, you play. Teams, you haven't been hit in the face for 4 straight games like Jack Cohn had. You let him go out there, and if the line doesn't improve and you keep hitting him in the face, same thing's going to happen to Drew Pine, which is what we saw in the Blue Gold game. He got pressured a lot in the Blue Gold game and rushed some throws and was getting rid of the ball too fast and held on to the ball at other times, and he wasn't overly effective. Realist LGND Killer. Any chance we see any of the freshman running backs play this year? They freaking better. They better. They absolutely better. Okay. AJ says, when will Reese find ways to get Tyree more involved in the offense? And this is the one from earlier. Also, we saw 2 jet sweeps of Ben freaking Skoranek last year. When are we going to see one to Lindsey? That's a great question. Great question. Would love to know. I'd love to understand that one. Jordan Schreiber asked me this earlier. Brian, do you have relationships with boosters to apply pressure on Jeff Quinn to not squander this opportunity for a national championship? Number one, I don't really know any boosters like that. Number two, I would never ask anyone to do that. That's not my place. That's not my job. My job is to analyze and cover the team, not to push buttons behind the scenes to try to accomplish what I want to get accomplished. That's not my job. That would be in my opinion, a huge breach in ethics for what I'm supposed to do and what my responsibility is. My responsibility is to cover and analyze the team, not try to manipulate things behind the scenes. And as a former coach, I would never do something like that to a former coach. I don't mind criticizing you publicly. I'll do that. That's my job. And Brian Kelly's going to do what he's going to do about it. I would never do that. All righty. Okay, I think that's it for the questions that Vince sent me. Let me get down to the questions that we have in here now. We got one here from White Bear. If we hit him in the mouth hard enough early in the game, I don't think Cincinnati will have what it takes to fight back. I don't think Cincinnati's good enough to come back from a big deficit against Notre Dame. I don't have any doubt that Cincinnati will fight for 4 quarters. I don't think if you hit them in the mouth, they're going to not keep coming at you. They're going to keep coming at you. They showed that against Georgia last year. Georgia came out and hit him in the mouth, was physical with him, had some big plays early, and Cincinnati kept battling. I don't think that they can come back on Notre Dame score-wise, but I don't think it'll be a thing where about fighting back. Physically, they'll fight back. I just think Notre Dame has better players. That's the big thing for me. Okay, let's get over here. Joseph Salvatore. Oh, that's a great way to start a question. This is a weird question, but do the players have an obligation to speak to the media in those midweek press conferences like it is something they have to do, or they can say no? I believe they can say no, yes. And there's no specific obligation that they have to do it. It's not like the NFL where you can find a guy. If a kid doesn't want to talk to the media, he could go to them and say, "Hey, look, here's why I don't want to talk to the media." But I think most kids are fine doing that. Jacob C. Our O-line is basically dead last, second to Akron for sacks allowed. Herney 777. Screens are difficult to execute. Have to practice it a lot. Yeah, I don't think they're difficult to execute. I just think they're like anything in the pass game. They require timing, and that's really the key. I think a great screen game is number one about calling it at the right time and getting the right looks and manipulating the defense in your favor. But yeah, I think it's definitely something that requires work, and they need to be doing it. Ed says if Buckner's healthy and going to play, maybe they should start him. Cincinnati would not be prepared for that, and it would be like an extended trick play. No, they should not start Tyler Buckner. Got a super chat down here from David Carpenter. Munching on a Built Bar. There we go. I did see that you put an order in recently, and counting down the hours until Notre Dame wakes up the Echoes against Cincinnati tomorrow. So yes, David is twice, I believe, now taking advantage of the 10% discount through Built Bar, which are amazing protein bars. They have one, the chocolate chip cookie dough is my new favorite, and they sell out of those quickly. The last time they had them back up, I literally went and bought 2 boxes. Like I had to, and then I had to hide them from my wife because otherwise she'll take all of them from me because she loves those things. But yes, you use, if there's a link in the description bar below, if you make sure that when you go to check out, before you check out, make sure that you've put in the promo code Irish Breakdown, all capitals, one word, Irish Breakdown, one word, and you'll get 10% off your whole order. So definitely take advantage of that. And thank you, David, for that super chat very, very much. Anthony Solomon says, you know, the world is upside down when Notre Dame is a home dog to Cincinnati. I hope they destroy Cincinnati to shut up the haters. I could understand if like Notre Dame was like 3-1 or 2-2, but man, them being 4-0. Just I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Florida Irishman says, Brian, please help me believe BK will modify his offense to attack Cincinnati the only way we can with our O-line. I would love to do that, but I'd be lying to you. I need to see it mode, to be completely honest with you. Preston asks, why did Notre Dame choose the Cincinnati game to host so many recruits? And then somebody down here said they didn't pick for all. Some are coming on their own. Either way, I think it'll be a good idea. It's a big time game. You're kind of right on that, White Bear. They did choose this game. They've been pushing kids, or not pushing kids, but like, hey, look, come to the Cincinnati game. Come to the Cincinnati game. So it's definitely been something they've pushed for the 2023 kids. And for me, I think it's smart because it's a top 10 game. I mean, you look at the rest of the schedule that they've played before and that they play after. It's not exactly like a murderer's row of big time opponents. There's some names opponents on there, but there's not a lot of opponents that you look at and say, boy, gee, that's a great matchup that recruits are going to be excited by. It's 2 top 10 teams. Got booted here a little bit again. Octavio Roca, will either one of you be at the UNC game? I would love to meet you guys. We'll both be at the North Carolina game, I believe. As we get closer, we'll let you know. We may do a tailgate. I doubt it. We're going to do a tailgate for the USC game. If the USC tailgate's just like the last one, then I'm not doing any more tailgates. But if it ends up being better, then we'll do. And not that that's not the people that came were awesome. It just, that's a lot of work and a lot of money for 12 people to show up. So, but we may do something where, I don't know, if somebody else is doing a tailgate, we may kind of go get there and go somewhere early and just kind of hang out for a little while if people want to meet us. But I doubt that would be the case. T. Stewart asks, do you think that our poor O-line play hurts or helps recruiting? Will recruits see it as a place they can start early or avoid the lack? We've been asked this before too. No, I think it hurts. If guys aren't being coached and it's an across the board thing, recruits can be like, I don't want to go there. I'm not going to get coached well. I think that's hurt them with recruits in the last 2 classes, to be honest with you, just from talking to people. Jeff Quinn does not have the development rotation. Look, the only people that right now that think Jeff Quinn is a great recruiter are Notre Dame fans who just refuse to, believe what their eyes have been telling them for most of the last 4 years, and recruits that Notre Dame has done a good job convincing. But the recruits that really spend time doing their research, Jeff Quinn doesn't have that kind of reputation. The reputation Jeff Quinn has is as a guy that's really good with scheme, as a putting a play call together, but not so much as a guy that is going to be developing players. All right, time to boot some people here. Never ceases to amaze me that some people just literally find it entertaining for them to come be a moron. I'll never understand that. William Perry, I have a hard time with putting any FBS team in the top 10. I know Cincinnati is a very good team and anything can happen, but they just don't play tough enough schedules. I'm going to disagree with that. I think that you can put a team like that theoretically in the top 10 if they play a good enough. I mean, look, the AAC is not the MAC. Okay. I think for me, I'd have a hard time putting like a MAC team in there unless they went and played Ohio State or Penn State and beat those teams, because that's a pretty bad schedule. But Cincinnati, look, they're playing Houston, they're playing SMU, they're playing UCF, they're playing Memphis. They're playing teams that could beat a lot of Power 5 teams. And I get your point. You're not talking about FBS. You're talking about Power 5. I understand that because they're all FBS. But for me, William, I think the AAC is better than the most of the other leagues. They're kind of like what the Mountain West used to be when it was Boise, TCU, and Utah and BYU were all in the Mountain West, where those 4 teams were legit teams. I mean, Boise State had legit top 10 teams back then, which is why they go on the road and beat Georgia, go on the road and beat Virginia Tech, go on the road and beat Oregon, back when Oregon was pretty good at those times. I remember they beat Oregon at one year. LeGarrette Blount punched a kid in the face. Remember that after the game? Boise won that game. And that's why Cincinnati is doing what they are doing now. This is why I give Cincinnati a lot more credit than UCF, for example, because UCF, their Power 5 games they would schedule would be like Pitt, teams like that, where Cincinnati's playing Indiana and Notre Dame. That's a much tougher game where if they win this game, they deserve to be in the top 10. Would I have them in the top 10 right now? No, I wouldn't, but they're definitely top 15. No question about it for me. Nathan Lytle, over under Notre Dame forces 3 turnovers. I'm going right there. I'm going right at 3. TJ 0311. What time is the post-game show? That doesn't have a set time. It just depends on like when the game ends and how long it takes Vince to get back from the stadium. Last week, I think for a 2:30 game with Vince driving back, we got started at like 5:45. That was for a noon game. I would imagine with a 2:30 game, it'll be closer to be sometime between 6 and 7, most likely is what we would shoot for. It just depends on, because we have, Vince has to drive back for the game. I have articles I have to publish. So usually it's about an hour or so after the game is when we'll get started. Bang 1801. PFF said Oklahoma was the highest rated O-line, and I kind of had to laugh. That's just kind of a common theme now with Pro Football Focus in college. It's their college analysis is just poo. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it. It's just not good. Corey Whitehead. Am I the only one who noticed that every team Notre Dame plays is always in the game until it's time for Notre Dame to win due to keeping that team in the game for ratings? No, that's not what's happening. All right, William Perry says, what if Alabama played Cincinnati's schedule? They'd still be ranked number 1. And no one's saying Cincinnati should be ranked number 1, but I think it's fair to say that the AAC is good enough to say if a team is winning and dominating that league, that they deserve to be a top 10 team. Nicholas Grosh says, how does Notre Dame and or CFB pick referees and replay officials at our home games? I thought the visiting team had their conference refs and Notre Dame picks the replay officials. I believe, well, it depends on their playing, but I think a lot of times now Notre Dame actually uses ACC refs for home games, I believe. Vince might actually be a better one to answer because I don't really pay attention to that kind of stuff. To be honest with you, I don't think any of the referees are any good. The refereeing has gotten so bad. I watched the Miami game last night. Receiver for Cincinnati or for Virginia is kind of going for a ball. He's completely defenseless. The Miami guy puts his head down, launches right into the guy's back. It's clearly targeting. And not only did they not call it target, they didn't even review it. So it's like they're all useless at this point in time. Okay, William Perry. If we can't blow Cincinnati out of the stadium, we have no chance to win a title this year, in my opinion. I get that's your opinion, right? So let me share my opinion. I think you have a fundamental misunderstanding of non-Power 5 teams. I think you live in this world where every Power 5 team it just sucks. The reality is there are AAC teams that could go into these Power 5 leagues and be good teams. If Cincinnati was in the Big Ten, they're an 8-9 win team, in my opinion. They just went on the road and beat a Big Ten team that people were projecting as a bowl team by 14 points and didn't even play well. They didn't even play well and beat Indiana by 14 points. What would they have done to Indiana if they'd have played well? UCF can go into these leagues and be an 8-9 win team consistently, in my opinion. Not so much the SEC, but I'm talking about like the AAC and the Big Ten. They're more regional things. And so, with all due respect, I just think you have a flawed view of the mountain of the AAC, and you kind of like equate the AAC with the MAC or the Sun Belt, and I think that's unfair. I think that look, we've seen UCF, for example, in recent seasons go toe to toe with LSU and some legit Power 5 teams. We saw Boise State back in the day. When they were rolling, beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl, went and beat Georgia in Atlanta, beat Virginia Tech. Beat Oregon regularly, beat Washington regularly. TCU used to do that. Remember when Urban Meyer was at Utah? Utah at the time was not a Power 5 school. The Mountain West was not a Power 5 school. Utah was not in the Pac-12 yet. And look what they did. So I think there's 3 tiers of college football, in my opinion. There's the Power 5s, and even then, it's more of the top 2/3 of the Power 5. Then there's, like, to me, the AAC, the Mountain West is still there to me, sort of, but they're fading back because they lost Utah and TCU. But Fresno just went on the road and beat UCLA. Nevada's had some good wins over the years, but you look at Boise State, what they've been able to do over the years. And then there's like the MAC, there's the Sun Belt, there's those kind of leagues that are clear, Conference USA, that are clearly a step below. And those teams, even the best team from those leagues, I'd still say Notre Dame should run them off the field. There's a reason that the Big 12 went after Cincinnati, because they're not North Texas. They're not Troy. They're not Arkansas State. They're a much different program. And to me, beating them is the key. I don't think it's a thing where if you don't run them off the field. No, I'm sorry. Cincinnati is grown to the point where they're better than that. Irish for Life says, Brian, I wanted to predict 27-16, but you got your prediction out before I could type it out. Grrr. Hey, man, there's nothing wrong with being on the same page as me, buddy. Nothing wrong at all. Tommy Guns, is there any film buried in the depths of YouTube of QB1 Driscoll? Future film review session during a slow period. Yes. It's all on VHS. It's nothing in YouTube. I still have some videos. I did one time kind of mess with our when I was at Muhlenberg, I messed with our quarterbacks coach because we were having trouble finding a quarterback. So I said, hey man, I got some really good film of this kid. You gotta check it out. And so I gave him my high school film. So this kid's really good. We should get him here. And I kind of felt bad because he got real excited. But no, I don't have any more film. It's all VHS, and I can assure you it'll never show up on YouTube. Matt Romero, is it possible Notre Dame moves on from Angeli, and what's the latest on Amorian Walker and his gloves? I don't see them moving on from Angeli. Tommy Rees likes Steve Angeli a lot, not just as a player, but as a young man. So I don't think they'll move on from him. What's the latest on Amorian Walker and his gloves? For those that don't know what this means, Amorian Walker in his last high school football game had Michigan gloves on. I don't know why Notre Dame doesn't tell that kid to take a hike. They flat out need to tell that kid to take a hike, and I would not mess with that kid at all. Let him go to Michigan and be a mediocre program and get steamrolled by Ohio State his whole career. That's fine by me. Jackson Everett. Brian, any thoughts as to USC's next head coach? I haven't really, Jackson, put a lot of thought into that. I think the one thing that USC needs to do is they need to take their time with this, but they also need to be diligent. I think they need to kind of figure out who can obviously recruiting is important, but look, recruiting for a head coach to me doesn't matter as much. They need to find a coach that is going to instill discipline and toughness. That is so important for USC. The one thing that, and I don't mean discipline off the field because that's almost impossible at USC, in my opinion. It's more about discipline as a football team. For all the off the field stuff that happened under Pete Carroll at USC, they were a very well coached football team when he was there, and that's what often gets missed when talking about the USC in the 2000s and when talking about Bama now and Miami in the 80s. Miami was a well-coached football team in the 80s. Now, they had discipline problems off the field and flags, but they knew what they were doing. They knew how to play football. USC was a well-coached football team. And I'm talking about Miami under Schnellenberger and Jimmy Johnson, not Dennis Erickson. That's when things kind of started to kind of go down. I'm more referring to the previous two coaches. Alabama is an extremely well-coached football team. Ohio State was very well-coached under Urban Meyer, just like they were under Florida, early in his tenure when they were winning titles. So they got to find someone that can bring toughness and discipline. That's going to be so important. And I don't think you necessarily need a flamboyant personality. That's what assistant coaches are for. You need a guy that can instill discipline and toughness. And if you can find that, that's the guy. Who that is, I'd have to think about this one for a little bit. I don't think James Franklin would be this splashy hire. That would be a very USC type of hire where you focus more on style than substance. And James Franklin, to me, is a really good recruiter. He's a good motivator. He's not a very good game day coach, and he's made some bad position coach hires, in my opinion. If not for him hiring Joe Moorhead, I don't know if he would have made it this long at Penn State. So I think you need to be careful with that hire. You need to hire somebody that can coach. Because, again, from a recruiting standpoint, just put in the work, but hire good assistants. That's what assistant coaches are for. And then you put in the work to do what you need to do. Like that we've got criticized Kelly before in the past. So I'm not thinking about that one, Jackson, because I'm going to think about that one. Because I mean, there's some good coaches out there. It's about fit, and fit's so important too. Like, you've got to get the right fit. Like, Randy Edsall's a good football coach at a place like UConn. I'm talking old Randy Edsall. And then he took the job at Maryland, and at the time, so that's a terrible fit. And he struggled. When Tom O'Brien left BC for NC State, so that's a horrible decision. That's a horrible fit for him and for NC State, and that's why he was successful. Sean Rogers has Notre Dame winning 37-17. I like that. And some more questions here. David Knight says, Brian, is there any one thing that you can say that we are not aware of that we will see tomorrow? You're going to see a different looking dime package tomorrow. That's about all I'm going to say on that. Sean Rogers says, I have a feeling Braden Lindsey is going to get on the board this week, rolling this week. That would be big. I did an article yesterday at irishbreakdown.com where I talked about some guys on offense that need to have big games. He wasn't the receiver that I picked. They need him to have a big game, a breakout game. And find some more down here. Sean Rogers says, how's Fisher recovering? Is he still on track to be back for the Southern Cal game? So, yeah, We talked about this yesterday. So Brian Kelly in his press conference yesterday made it seem like Blake Fisher may not be back this season. We had said about a week or so ago that we were hearing that, it may take a little longer. I'm a little surprised that Brian Kelly's already basically saying his season. He's basically said he didn't say the season's over. He said we're not doing things as if we're going to get him back. So it sounds like he may not be back this season. Ryan Gavin says, I've watched Tyree's kick return at least 10 times. One of my favorite recent Notre Dame plays. And that's why you recruit players from Virginia. I'm just saying that's what you got to do. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on there. The Irishman 7114. Do you think a guy like Impemba would be a straight defensive end, or is he someone you could use like Patelho and use as a linebacker in some situations? I think that kid can play anywhere you want him to play. I think he could play Viper. I think he could play grown to a big end. I think you could use him like Patelho. I think you could put him at tight end. That kid's really athletic and do a lot of different things. TJ0311, what is your thinking on special teams? How do you make the decision on the type of returns? There's a couple things that go into it. Number one is, where does their kicker have a tendency to place the ball? If a kicker is erratic, you may kind of say, hey, look, here's what we want to do. We want to kind of have a middle return always set up, because that way, if he kicks it in the middle, then we're set. That's where you want to be. But if he kicks it to a corner, then we can kind of get something going. Or you may say, hey, look, if they like to kick to the middle a lot, you may say, hey, we're going to go right or left, because they tend to, fold from this side or that side because of the way that their coverage scheme is set up. You kind of you watch the coverage team. Is there like a guy that gets down there fast? Is there a guy that gets down there slow? Can you take advantage of the guy that gets down there fast because, you can create a kick out and then that opens up a crease? It's like scouting any other position, really. It's you find holes in what they do. So holes in their coverage. Hey, this guy, we can get that guy. We can block that guy. We have something for that guy. Hey, if we smoke this reverse, I'm sorry, fake. It's a fake. It's a fake reverse. If we smoke this reverse, their backside really eats that up and we can get a middle return going, things like that. It's scouting. That's what it boils down to. And then it comes down to, like any other part of the game, are you teaching the fundamentals to then execute those things? Are you in a lot of it's timing and getting back to the depth. I mean, sometimes if your guys don't drop deep enough, then they're getting to the blocks too soon. If they overdrop, then they're not getting there soon enough. I mean, it's a lot of this is timing, but it's game planning, and it's going to be different every week. It's do we have a guy that can get to speed quickly and we can do this, or do we need a guy that needs time to build up speed? Do we have a guy that's more shifty? There's all types of different things that go into it. No, Lord. Okay. Okay. We are a channel that focuses on football. Just letting y'all know. Darian Thomas says, I'm thinking that this game might play out like last week's game before the fourth quarter. If the O-line doesn't play to its potential, Notre Dame wins 30-17. So Darian sees Notre Dame kind of pulling away again in the fourth quarter. I think if the offensive line just plays solid football, I don't think this will be a game in the fourth quarter. And I may be overly confident. I admit that. Vince and I were talking earlier, and I kind of told him, like, he was talking about, like, he has the feeling I had last week against Wisconsin, whereas, like, I'm just not worried about this game. And that's kind of how I feel about this game. It's like we've already seen Notre Dame beat good teams with an offensive line be bad. I can't imagine them being worse than what they've been. I mean, they can't be worse. I mean, literally, I can't fathom of a manner in which they would be worse. Tommy Gunn says, I can't wait for Kyle Hamilton to square up this QB and knock his freaking block off. I don't know if he'll get any chances for that. I would like to see Kyle Hamilton not be knocking this guy's block off. I'd rather see Kyle Hamilton sitting back in center field, and when one of the DNs or linebackers hits him, he's there to pick it off and run it back to the house. That's much rather what I would see. Yankees fan 93. Notre Dame wins tomorrow versus Cincinnati. They might go 12-0 and make the playoffs. I put something on the message board last night where I said if Notre Dame wins this week and next week, they won't lose again. Because the defenses on the back half of their schedule are garbage. I'm going to give you some stats, and this is before Cincinnati gave up 30 points to Miami last night, or 28 points to Miami last night. This is the last 6 opponents. So it's USC, North Carolina, Navy, Virginia, Georgia Tech, and Stanford. Here's the points per game being given up by the final 6 opponents: 27, 29.5, 33.3, 27.5, 18.8, and 27.5. The 18.8 being Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is the only team left on Notre Dame's schedule after Virginia Tech that's giving up fewer than 27.5 points per game. It's like Notre Dame will have played all the good defenses on their schedule by the time they're done with Virginia Tech. So if they win these next 2 games, they'd have to choke a game away not to go undefeated. Okay, here's White Bear follows up. He goes, I should have phrased my comment better. I don't think Cincinnati won't fight. I just don't think they have the same level of athletes to stay in it for 4 quarters. I would be closer to agreeing with, yes. Irish for Life says, I'm still shocked that Kyle Hamilton was penalized on his QB hit. He hit the QB at his thigh and not his knee or below. I get that, but I also know that they're really liberally going to hand out those low hits on the quarterback. And as a former quarterback, I kind of understand that one because you're planted. It's real dangerous. It's, you're planted. A guy, even an upper thigh hit, if your leg is planted, can bend you back enough to do some damage. So I didn't have a huge problem with it. We'll see. Florida Irishman says, I predicted 41-9 last week. I hope I'm wrong, with Cincinnati 20-19. Interesting. They win the turnover battle and score late. That's interesting. David, I don't understand this. What you mean? Maybe tailgate without the refreshments. I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you could elaborate, I'd appreciate that. John Climax says, does anyone else think that Botelho took the Ritter comments the most personal? Yikes. It'd be nice. It'd be nice. Daniel Harris says, first-time commenter, long-time listener. Let's go Irish family. Thank you for joining the show, Daniel. I appreciate that very, very much. Always enjoy people being part of the show, and especially getting involved. We love hearing from you all because you all at the end of the day are what make this thing special. So when you guys comment and be a part of it, we love it. Absolutely love it. Jeff DeMonk, Brian need to plan to have IB family come join the Fanbulance tailgate. So that's Jeff's got like this ambulance. He sent me a picture, and it's like they've painted it. It's got like Notre Dame stuff, and they've like turned it into like a tailgating thing. It's really cool. Night games are awesome. Lots of food and music, and right across the street from the baseball field. I will be there for USC. Let me know, man. I'll definitely come see you, Jeff. Jeff, by the way, we had all those buns for the sandwiches last week. They were all provided by Jeff. So he couldn't be there, so he wanted to support, and that's what he did, which I appreciated very, very much. Irish for Life says, Brian, why can't Indy hire another GA to help with the technique of the O-line? Well, they do have a GA that's helping with that, but you shouldn't ask a GA to do that. But you can only have so many coaches. There are limitations from an NCAA standpoint on how many coaches you can have on the field. So they just couldn't go out and hire another GA. Plus, there's like a lot of unemployed, really good offensive line guys who are eligible to be GAs. The NCAA has also changed their rules on who can be a GA because people were going out and hiring like former NFL players and making them GAs. And NCAA decided that was something they couldn't have. So they had to change the rule, which I think is stupid. But, it is the NCAA, and they do all types of stupid things. So, God forbid schools game the system to get quality coaches in there for these kids. That just the horror of that. I just can't believe these scumbag coaches would imagine doing something like that. Why would they want to have more good coaches on their staff? That's clearly a bad idea, right, NCAA? So sorry, you get me fired up. Tommy Guns calling shots here, literally. Ritter scrambles up the middle. He comes Bertrand from the left, but down from the right, and crack crunch. They'll get some shots on him. Okay, here we go. Robert Didoff says, Brian, following up on my assignment where you wanted me to ask this question again from Wednesday. Yes, I did want you to do that. If we win tomorrow, are you now concerned like USC and North Carolina since they have 0 to lose? Not with USC. I was until last week. My fear with USC, and this is what Rob's talking about. My fear with USC is once Clay Helton's fired, that there was no pressure on USC anymore. And they were just going to go out, and Dante Williams is the head coach, and they're going to, they like him. He's a good recruiter and, good coach that the players like and respect. Reportedly, that's what the reports are. I don't know. I never met Dante Williams nor did I talk to any USC players. But the thing for me was that can be when a team can be dangerous because they're just going to go out there and play loose and play ball. And you still have the same coordinators and the same assistant coaches. You just didn't have your head coach. And maybe you start to see the best of that team. And then USC went out and got hammered by Oregon State at home. And I was like, okay, yeah, it's still the same USC. There's still a deeper culture problem there that just doesn't get fixed because Clay Helton's not around. So I'm less concerned about USC. I still feel like North Carolina has a lot to lose. North Carolina has 2 losses right now, so they're out of the playoff hunt. But I don't think North Carolina's goal this season was necessarily college football playoff. I think Mac Brown's in year 3. Mac Brown's goal right now is to win the Coastal. That's his goal. There's still a lot for them to play for. Now, if they lose another game between now and then, you could get into maybe now they don't have anything to play for. But that can be a double-edged sword because a team that had high expectations is now out of it. I would say it's just as much of a concern that that whole we don't have anything to play for thing results in them like, well, why are we here? Why am I practicing hard? We don't have anything on the table we're playing for. You may have a kid opt out. You may have a kid say, hey, there's all types of things that could happen depending on how they react to having 0 to lose. So it can go both ways. That's a very good question, though, but it is a concern of mine. And the good thing that we'll have, Rob, is, USC, they both have games between now and the time that they play Notre Dame. So we're going to kind of find out what they're going to see. And that's why my opinion on USC has changed. I was legitimately concerned, just like you were after Clay Helton got fired and then the Oregon State happened. Because then they beat Washington State 45-14, and I was like, okay, that kind of added to my concern. But then when Oregon State beat them, you can put in some context on this. The last time that USC lost to Oregon State at home was 1961. My dad, who's in his mid-60s, creeping up on 70 now, was 6 years old. 6 years old the last time Oregon State beat USC at USC. That was a bad loss, and they got spanked in the second half. They got spanked. North Carolina has Duke, Florida State, Miami before they play Notre Dame, and then, of course, a bye week. So we're going to have a good idea if North Carolina is still locked in or if they kind of going down to 2. But I think North Carolina still has a lot to play for because they got 2 losses, but there's going to be a lot of teams in the Coastal with 2 losses. I predicted the Coastal winner to have 3 losses. I predicted 2 different Coastal winners. On the website, I predicted North Carolina the first time, and then when we did our show in the summer, I flipped it to Miami, which looks really bad now. That prediction looks really bad now, but there's going to be a lot of 2-loss teams in the Coastal, so there's still a lot to play there for them. TJ0311, thank you. Signing up for the boards later. Thank you for that, TJ. I look forward to that. Matt Sokolowski says, can you talk a little bit about what actually happens when kids go on a recruiting visit to Notre Dame? Well, there's 2 different types of visits, so let's focus on the unofficial visits because that's what all these ones are. Unofficial visits, usually, especially during the season, are 1-day visits. You come up before the game. Some kids will come up much sooner before the game. Most of the time some of these kids will just come for the game, and then that way they just kind of come for the game. They meet the recruiting staff. There's now actually a recruiting section in Notre Dame Stadium where it's just for recruits, which I thought was really smart to do as part of the rebuild. And you meet the recruiting staff. If you're there a little bit before the game, they take you down on the field. You can meet the coaches, shake hands with the coaches, all that kind of stuff. Then you sit in a special section where one of our listeners actually is in that section, which is pretty cool. And I would need to make time to go see him, and I just haven't had a chance to do that yet. I apologize for that, but we'll get down there to see you. But then they sit for the game. The kids that get there earlier, they'll come, they'll meet the recruiting staff, they'll meet their host, they'll kind of go meet the coaches, kind of talk to the coaches, maybe talk a little ball. Then they'll take a tour of campus, take them to all the different facilities, let them see the crowd, everything going on, which is why I love kids get there early, and just do like a kind of a condensed visit. You'll meet the coaching staff. Depending how early you get there, you may be able to meet with some people from admissions, but that's usually a lot harder on Saturday game days. That's not always not really a huge component of the Saturday unofficial. It's more so a component of the off-season unofficials when they'll do that. And then if it's an unofficial after the game, you talk to the staff. They say hi, they say bye, love you. We definitely want to get you back here, and then they go home. That's pretty much how those goes. Official visits are longer. They'll get on Friday, leave Sunday. You'll have the whole deal. You'll spend time with players. You'll sit in coaching meetings. You'll go over X's and O's. Here's how you fit. You meet with the admissions people. You'll meet with other administrators. You get the whole thing. I mean, you meet everybody. You sit down and get your presentation from Matt Bayless and what the strength staff is. Sometimes they'll have one-on-ones with Matt Bayless for some kids. You sit down and get in the film room with the assistant coaches. They kind of go over how you fit into what they do. You have academic conversations. You sit down for that. So it's obviously a lot more intensive, but it's also a lot longer. So that's a general idea of what they do. Okay, Michael Moore says, Brian, you remember you said in the summer, I'll promise you right now, anytime you say if you remember what you said in the summer, half the time I'm going to remember if it's something I said that was good or smart, and the other half the time if it's something I said that was dumb or wrong, I'm not going to remember that. You remember you said in the summer that if the Irish start throwing it around with success, that 5-star QBs and wide receivers would start to show interest in Notre Dame. Good call. Yeah, I did say this. See, now I remember that. Yes, I did remember that now, of course, because that made sense. And yes, I appreciate that. I did say that because the word that I wanted to say, John Klimek said, he said poo, because the word I wanted to say was not appropriate for our channel, and poo was the only thing I could think of. So, yes. John Rich with a super chat that I did not see. John said, my granddaughter came home on the 27th and weighed 6 pounds, 11 ounces. Final this weekend, Notre Dame 27-17. So John actually sent me a picture of his new granddaughter, and she is absolutely adorable. I'm going to ask him if next time we have a show, if I could show that picture, but that she is absolutely adorable. And so John, thank you for sending that to me. I really appreciate that. She is here. I'm actually pull it up now. Yes. John, I have the picture. So she's got like she's a newborn. I mean, she's brand new. She's got like the white hat on they put on babies. And then she's got like a blue like bandana with a bow that's got like a green and navy blue like ribbon. And then it's got a Notre Dame kind of bow also that kind of goes in 4 ways. And then a football right there. It is the cutest thing ever. So super adorable. I really appreciate John. Okay, he said it's okay to show. So let me pull this up. I'm going to show it to y'all. This is absolutely adorable. Y'all got to see this. This is John's newest granddaughter. John has been a longtime member of from the beginning of our show. So this is his granddaughter. Let me take your super chat down, John, so we can see her. So this is John. This is the newest member of the Notre Dame family right here. This is John's granddaughter. Tell me that's not absolutely adorable. Everybody, come on now. I know it's the football channel, but I mean, that's absolutely adorable. So that's John's granddaughter. She was born this week, and congratulations, buddy. She's absolutely precious. So thank you for letting me show that. So appreciate that very much. All right. Double Springs Youth also predicting Notre Dame wins 30-20. I like that. Michael Hahn says Notre Dame uses ACC refs when they are in charge of getting the refs. If the other team is in charge of getting the refs, they get their conference officials. And as he said later, it's determined by the contract. I just don't know when Notre Dame does or doesn't determine, like when what contracts say that or not. Daniel Harris says, is it me? Or when the Irish get up 2 scores or more, they let off the gas and start time management mode and slack on defense. In my opinion, this lets the confidence of the other team build back up. Daniel, I agree with you completely. I mean, I talked about this on a radio show in Texas yesterday, and the thing I said was, everybody's kind of panicking. Oh, they barely beat Florida State and Florida State stinks. And it's like, look, Notre Dame was about to run them off the field. They were up 38-20. They were stomping them in the third quarter. And then they went away from what got them there. They stopped pressuring on defense. They stopped attacking on defense. And then they let Florida State go on this long, methodical drive, scored, then the offense fails. And then next thing you know, it's like they got all the momentum. Had they kept their foot on the gas, I think they would have blown Florida State out. We saw the same thing when they got a 24-16 lead against Toledo a little bit. We saw the same thing this past week against Wisconsin to a degree offensively, but that one I actually understood. But there was the series where it was 27-13 and they kind of backed off and Wisconsin kind of hit a couple plays. I'm like, here we go again. And fortunately, after I think the second first down, Marcus Freeman said, okay, enough of that nonsense. And he went more aggressive and they ended up picking a pass off, or it was 24-13, I think, when that happened. And that's when Cam Hart picked off a pass. I believe, could be getting my drives mixed up, but he quickly went away from that, which I was very happy about. But that's a very, very good observation, Daniel. It's been that way for a while. And I hope that Marcus Freeman kind of learns from that a little bit and doesn't kind of fall into that same boat. Hey, Irish for Life says, Brian, my four-legged child is sitting here with me as we watch the show. I love hearing that because, yes, I'm very happy to hear that. I know that's been stressing you out a lot lately, buddy. I'm very, very happy to hear that. Andres N says, your thoughts on QB3 Tyler Buchner? I'm impressed by his willingness and ability to let the ball out and make plays. Look, I've been very pleased with what I've seen so far from Tyler Buchner. We haven't had a chance to see him throw it a bunch. His decision makes out to improve, but in the spring we saw him getting the ball out on time, and he hit Mitchell Evans on a corner route where Mitchell sticks that inside foot, and Tyler's already cocking the throw and getting the ball out. I loved that. He's still got a lot to learn as a passer, but he's been everything I hoped he would be so far. And he's going to need time because he didn't play football 2 of the last 3 years. But so far, physically and skill set wise, he's been everything I hoped he would be. And and so is Drew Pine. I mean, I'm pleased with the future of the Notre Dame quarterback position as long as guys can stay healthy. I think Notre Dame's in a great place. Christopher Fowler says, am I crazy, or does our 2022 class look like a game changer? You're not crazy, Christopher. I think there's a lot of guys in this class to me that are gap closers, and I haven't worn the gap closer shirt in a while. But 100% agree with that. I mean, when you look at receiver, Tobias Merriweather, CJ Williams, top 100 recruits. Tobias Merriweather, gap closer, big time. Very good tight end class coming in. I like Jadarian Price when Notre Dame landed him, and I like him even more after what I've seen from him his senior year so far. It's not a great O-line class, but it's a good O-line class. Defensive line-wise, Tyson Ford, Aiden Gabera are big-time players. They have the best linebacker class in the country. I love their cornerback class. Now, the thing I'll say about 2022, Christopher, is it's got to finish strong, though. It's a really great class. I think it's going to be a top 5 to 8 class right now. But they need to get one of the D linemen. They've got to get one of Lucas or Hero Canoe. They've got to get Xavier Nwankpa. They've got to get one more receiver, and they need to get another offensive lineman that's a good football player. They've got to finish off with that 100% for it to be a truly, truly gap closing class. That's what they're going to need. Absolutely. But there's a lot of difference makers, a lot of game changers in this class at positions where they need more of them. Linebacker depth chart is looking a little spotty moving forward before this class. I mean, I love Prince Kollie, but you didn't sign anybody the year before him. He only got 2 last year. One of those kids, Kahano Kia, might be going on a mission after his freshman year. Future was looking a little, so it's looking a lot better now. I love the back-to-back corner classes they've had. Orange glove guy, Brian Van Gorder to USC. That never happened, but that would be just sensational. Brian Denbo, Southern Cal trying to get Coach Freeman. I doubt that they're having any conversation with Marcus Freeman right now. Would it be smart for them to maybe at least reach out? Probably. But, I'd still have the same concerns about that I'd have about him taking over Notre Dame right now. he still has some things to prove. But yeah, I would definitely be on my radar. Do I see Marcus Freeman going to USC? Absolutely not. He's a Midwestern guy. Oh, there's some great suggestions here about who USC should hire from a sarcasm standpoint. Yes, that would be great for Notre Dame. Great for Notre Dame. Kenny Moore with a good comment. USC needs someone who can build their culture back. And that's kind of where I was getting to, Kenny, is they need someone who can instill discipline and toughness. I mean, USC used to be a team that was all about running the ball and playing great defense. And now it's like this air raid nonsense and just, these things that are just like they're a finesse team. There's no toughness. I'll still never forget watching that USC game in 2017. And I've seen some games where USC blew Notre Dame out, and I've seen some games where Notre Dame blew USC out. I've never seen either one of those teams quit. And to watch USC's linemen in that game on defense just quit, just turn their backs on Notre Dame's guys just to avoid getting hit, said everything you need to know about the culture that Clay Helton was building there. And what happened was once he lost Sam Darnold, you saw a lot of what happened at Clemson. One thing I said about Clemson this summer, and it's proving to be true, is I said Trevor Lawrence masked a lot of problems at Clemson the last 2 years offensively. And Sam Darnold did the same thing. Him and Ronald Jones did the same thing, masked a lot of problems. And once he was gone, those warts were exposed. I mean, they were exposed for who they are, and they have never been a very good team since. Now, I think Clemson's going to bounce back and be better than what USC was, but you get the point. And that got exposed in that game more than any other. David, I don't know what you're thanking me for. I still don't understand what I'm trying to understand what your question was about the refreshments thing. So I'm not sure if I don't think I answered that or not yet. Jean Bay, I hope I'm getting right. John Bay, this is a great online community I'm glad I've discovered. We'll join the board ASAP. I love hearing that. Thank you for all your insight and hard work. Greatly appreciated. Cheers. Vince is still in the thing below. He can't actually be in the chat because he's in class, but he can hear it. But got another member of the board. So Vince is greatly appreciate your kind words as well. David Knight says the DMV is loaded with players. That is Maryland, Virginia, DC. So yes, it is absolutely is. Benjamin Weiss, alone in the factory right now, currently blasting IB live on the PA. I love it. I love it. DBZ asks, would it be possible to take the shotgun snap and have a 7-step drop to prevent snacks? Only problem with that is you'd have to throw like a 30-yard in cut to complete a 5-yard crossing route. That would be the only problem. That's pretty far. But no, I would like to see sort of like a 3 to 5 at times on some of this stuff to get him a little bit more depth away from the line. I definitely would like to see that. Paul Rose with a little prediction. Cone goes for 300 yards, 3 TDs, and Williams gets his first 100-yard game with 2 touchdowns, 45-17 in favor of Notre Dame. So that would be isn't that kind of, I'm looking at this now. Isn't that kind of crazy? We're now 4 games into the season and Kyron Williams is still yet to get to 100 yards, despite the fact he has a 43-yard touchdown run in a game and a 51-yard touchdown run in a game. That's kind of sad. Folklore says, I've never bet on sports before and am not sure my heart can handle betting on Notre Dame, but I feel stupid not betting a couple $100 on the Irish this weekend. That's some confidence right there. That's some confidence, no doubt about it. Orange Glove Guy, do you think that BK Percy got involved with O-line coaching this week? Percy in regards to like being in – like coaching him up, no, I don't think he's done that. But being around and making sure that there's a level of accountability, yes, I think there's been some of that. Absolutely. David Knight says not go through the effort of food, drinks, water, everything else, but still get together and talk about football. Yeah, I mean, maybe we can have like a poll on that. I just kind of feel like that would be cheap for me. Like it would just I'd feel bad about that. But if that's what people want, then that's I mean, I get that. I get that. Let me think about that, David. Let me think about that. That's not a bad idea. Just like set up a tent somewhere, park there, and just kind of have people meet us. But um, that's not a bad idea. Let me think about that. I'll get you on DM and kind of talk further about that. That's not a bad idea. All right. Joel Anderson said, appreciate all you guys do. Thank you. One area of disagreement is the mobility factor between Cone and Pine. Showed in the game time action on Saturday that he's much more mobile. Cone looks stuck in mud. Again, I mean, they're different athletes. I've never said Jack Cone's a great athlete. I actually pushed back against when Brian Kelly was talking about how he's a great athlete. I don't think Jack Cone looks stuck in mud. I've seen this expression a lot of times. Look, if you've played quarterback, you know exactly what's happening to Jack Cone. When you're getting attacked from the outside and the inside and you never know where the pressure's from, you almost get your feet almost get frozen. And you get into situations where, okay, I don't know where to go. That's not what Jack Cone looked like in the opener. I mean, we saw Jack Cone making throws on the move in the opener. I think Jack Cone is a guy, he took off and ran for a couple yards on Saturday. Drew Pine has quicker feet because he's also shorter. But Drew Pine also got sacked twice in the game. One time where he's running around, moving his feet real fast, still got tackled behind the line of scrimmage. So I don't disagree that Drew Pine isn't more mobile. It's not going to matter. If the offensive line doesn't play better, it's not going to matter who you have a quarterback. It just isn't. And we go through this all the time. When a backup quarterback comes in a game and he does this and he makes a couple plays and does things that we've seen the other guy do. I mean, Drew Pine didn't do anything on Saturday except, I'll say, to your point, the one thing, if I'm being fair, the throw he rolls to his right, throws across his body. I haven't seen Jack Cone do that. But everything else that he did, hit the seam route, came back to Kevin Austin on the backside, we've seen Jack Cone do all those things. Now, you go through a month where Drew Pine's starting quarterback and he's getting hit in the face every other play, then you're going to be wondering why Drew Pine is looking lost in the pocket, and now it's time for Tyler Buckner. And then that's going to happen to Tyler Buckner, and we're going to be wondering, does Brendan Clark healthy yet? The problem's up front. The problem's not the quarterback. I mean, we're talking about Jack Cone being a Heisman candidate after the first couple games. The problem's the line, and it doesn't matter who you put at quarterback. It's going to be the line. And let's not forget, Jack Cone wasn't in the game when they had a strip sack that forced the ball out. You know, Jack Cone wasn't in the game for the last sack of the game. They called it a run, but it was a sack because Drew Pine tried to move out and got tackled behind the line of scrimmage, like 3-4 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Let's see here. Zach Garza, will Dart be the QB or Slovis? That may be the main question. I believe Jackson Dart's out right now. I think he had a meniscus injury. So I don't think he's available for them right now. I'm not sure how long he's going to be out, but I don't know if he's going to be back for the Notre Dame game, but he's definitely out, I believe, this weekend. Hunter says, diehard Bearcats fan here. Notice a lot of animosity from both sides for this Saturday. Honestly, just hoping for an all-time classic game. Much respect for Notre Dame and your show. Thank you for that, Hunter. I appreciate that. And I'll tell you this. We've actually had some really good non-Notre Dame fans in this chat. There's been a couple, but there's some Notre Dame fans we've had to boot out of here. But Vince and I, a guy that for a Toledo fan came up to us at the Toledo game. We've had Ladarius Martin, who's an Alabama fan, who comes into our chat all the time. We had some really good Florida State fans. So we really appreciate when fans come in and you don't have to agree with us. You don't have to think that Notre Dame's going to win this weekend, but being respectful and engaging in what we're talking about is always much appreciated. So we appreciate that very, very much, Hunter, and appreciate you listening to our show. Ron Tuck says Cincinnati should have beat Georgia in the bowl game last year. Cincinnati was there the whole team has their whole team back. Almost they are a really good team. Never said they're not a really good team. They're just not better than Notre Dame, or shouldn't be better than Notre Dame. All right, I think we're getting close. Lucas Chapman, Notre Dame 34-20. Notre Dame's defense dominates. Let's get down here. A few more. I think we're getting close to the end here. I want to make sure that we B Straw, with Joe Walt wearing number 45 and being an eligible receiver, when do you think Tommy calls a play to throw a pass to him? I mean, they barely threw passes to Tommy Trumbull in the last 9 games last year. You know, you're using too much common sense, B Straw. You know, yeah. Tommy Guns, Brian, would you consider BC beating Clemson this weekend an upset? Yes, because they don't have Phil Dracovic. Yes, I would consider that an upset. Yes, I don't think Dennis Grozel's the guy that would make me feel comfortable doing that. Calling an upset. This doesn't mean that they can't win. I'm just saying I'd still view it as an upset if they beat them. I mean, if BC beat Clemson, hold on, I read that incorrectly. Let me start over, Tommy, because I read that backwards. Would you consider BC beating Clemson this weekend an upset? Yes, I would still consider that an upset because they don't have Phil Dracovic. I don't think I said that correctly at the beginning. They still have their backup quarterback. Could they beat Clemson? Yes, they can beat Clemson. Would I still consider it an upset? Yes, I would. Because at the end of the day, Clemson still has better players. All righty. Trying to find some more questions here. TJ0311, can I ask your opinion on Arkansas versus Georgia? I think Arkansas can win. Yeah, I can certainly ask my question on that. We actually have a breakdown. That's one of the games we do big game predictions. We did Georgia and Arkansas. We did Alabama, Ole Miss, and we did Kansas State, Oklahoma. And I picked Georgia in that game. I picked actually Ole Miss to beat Alabama, which just to be contrarian, but I think they got a shot. I don't think Alabama's looked great to me this year. I think Ole Miss can outscore them. Will they? I don't know. But I ended up going with Georgia in this game, 24-20. And the reason for that, TJ, is they're at home. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. I think that Arkansas has the ability to make some plays down the field. I think Arkansas's defense is salty enough to play with Georgia. I think there's some matchups I like. I think Traylon Burks is a kid that can give Georgia's secondary some problems. They've got 2 really good receivers. They can run the ball. They're physical up front. I just don't know if Arkansas's got the ability to go on the road and pull this off. Or no, they have the ability to do it. I'm not confident enough that it will happen to predict them to upset. But look, I picked Arkansas to beat Texas A&M last week. I predicted Arkansas to beat Texas A&M by 10 points last week. So I believe 10 points. So I like this Arkansas team. They made me a believer when I watched them play Texas. I said, that's a good football team. And it's a completely different deal to go on the road and beat Georgia. Can they do it? Yeah, they can do it. Will I predict them to do it? No, I couldn't go that far. Would I like to see them do it? Heck yes. I would love to see Arkansas beat Georgia this weekend. Absolutely. John Rich, thanks, IB Nation. You're the best. Full stop. I appreciate that. The Sunset Kid said phone ran out of juice, missed most of the show. Notre Dame 36, Cincinnati 18. V-Dub 804. Okay, you know that means where he's from. That means he's from Virginia in the 804 area code, I think. It's a fellow Virginian. In your opinion, can we get Xavier Nwankpa because crystal ball predictions have him going to Ohio State? I actually think Notre Dame is in the best position right now, in my opinion. I do. I don't really care much about crystal balls. A lot of those crystal balls are old. I think that Notre Dame and Iowa are both trending in the right direction for Xavier Nwankpa. The people I talk to are real confident that if the visit goes well when he visits for USC in a few weeks now, that Notre Dame's going to be in a great position. So, yeah, I feel much better about the possibility of Notre Dame landing Xavier Nwankpa. And they need to. All right. Jason, this is what I'm laughing at. Jason Smith says the poise of Prine was impressive. I agree with you completely. I just some advice people were giving to our friend from Canada as far as how to get into the United States to watch a Notre Dame game was just really Really, really funny. So let's see if we can get some more questions here. All right. Okay. Tommy Gunn says, in NCAA 14, I started a dynasty at Kent State. Um, uh, Pulled the top 2 receivers of the class. Then that off season, I got offered to go to Notre Dame, and I had to jump. That, I'm gonna be honest, Tommy. That was always my favorite part of that game. I rarely played it after a while. I would just sit there and just do the dynasty stuff and just kind of recruit and then simulate the seasons and then get job offers, turn some down. I'm turning down Texas because I'm still waiting on Notre Dame. So I I enjoyed that very much. All right. Brandon asked, thoughts on 2023 O-lineman Dylan Senda from Michigan. He's visiting this weekend. What other 2023 O-line have you watched, and who are you high on as of right now? So I have watched him a little bit. Decent athlete, tough kid. I would not offer him yet because I need to see how he fills out. I think he's got a body that needs to keep growing. He's got some toughness. Because you sent me a DM on this, which I appreciated, allowed me to watch him a little bit. But I'm not. I wouldn't be ready to offer him just yet. Some guys that I like. Again, it's early yet. I mean, he's just starting his junior year, so I don't think you have to offer him. I mean, maybe they had him at camp and they saw him at camp and they liked him, but I would be a little hesitant to offer him just yet because I think Notre Dame needs to hit on some seriously big fish in this class in the offensive line. Some guys I really like are TJ Shanahan. Obviously, he's a guy that I like. He grew up a Notre Dame fan. That's a kid that you have to have success with. You have to be able to get that kid. He's in Texas now. He was in Florida. Chase Basantis is a kid from Jersey that I really like. I think Penn State's in a good position with him as Notre Dame's battling. He's a kid that you've got to be able to get more involved with. Monroe Freeling. I think Tom Loy has reported that Monroe Freeling. Somebody told me this. That Tom has reported it. Monroe Freeling is going to visit this weekend. I have not had a chance to get him, but I know he's got some decent rankings. Samson Lola is a kid from Massachusetts that I like a lot. He has reshaped his body. Like the last time I saw him on film, he was kind of a pudgy kid. Saw him this summer at the Columbus Under Armour event, and he was really impressive. Completely reshaped his body. Really good athlete. Josh Padilla is a kid that Notre Dame's looking at. He's a little undersized, tough kid, decent athlete. He's a kid that I'd keep an eye on, but not necessarily push for right now. Harris Sewell's a big guard, big physical guard from Texas, from Permian. He's a good player. And then Caden Proctor is an elite player. And Notre Dame's, I think Notre Dame's one of his top 3 or 4 schools. He's a 5-star kid, goes to the same high school as Xavier Nwankpa. He's a guy that I think Notre Dame can be. Look, Jeff Quinn, that's the kind of guy that you'd expect Harry Hiestand to get. And that's the kind of guy that Jeff Quinn has to get, in my opinion. There's no doubt about it in my mind. WJS asks, I might have missed it. How do you feel about the green out? You think they should hand out green shirts to make it look good? Yeah, I think if you're going to ask, you're Notre Dame, right? You've literally got gold into your building. You make all this money. Yeah, you want people to wear green and give people green shirts, right? Doesn't Penn State do that? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't Penn State hand out white T-shirts for their whiteout games? Yeah, but no, what they always want to do is they want to have a color of whatever the jersey that they're selling for however much money they're selling it for. So they still want you to, pay $100 for a ticket and $100 for food for 3 people and then $100 for parking. And oh, by the way, you still got to buy your shirt for the green out. So yeah, I think they should. Absolutely. Or say, hey, look, we're going to have a green out for this game. And if you buy tickets to this game, when you buy the tickets, you also put in your shirt size and we'll send you a shirt. But, Notre Dame's not going to do that. Tool Worker says, is it supposed to be raining on Saturday during the game? Vince, have you had a chance to look at the weather report today? Is it still supposed to be raining on Saturday? It is. Is it kind of the same as what it's been the last couple of days, like 25% scattered showers? Yeah, it's supposed to rain, not much. There's a chance they may miss the rain. We've seen that before too. Paul Rose, what are the odds of Notre Dame replacing Dell and finding a receiver coach that develops receivers? I have no faith that Brian Kelly's going to make tough decisions on the offensive staff this year. None. I hope he proves me wrong, but that's certainly a position where I mean, anyone that's going to watch the Notre Dame receivers play and say, "Oh, look at the numbers, they're well coached," doesn't know how to evaluate wide receivers, in my opinion. They're not a well coached team. They're not maximizing their production. They're just really talented, and they're getting by on being really talented. They're not a well coached group, and I don't really know. I mean, I don't know anyone that I know that is a coach or knows the game that looks at Notre Dame's receivers like, "Wow, they're really well coached." They're not. All right, we got another super chat, and we're getting close to wrapping up here. But Lane Roy, I recently discovered you guys, and now I look forward to the streams every day. I'm a center Grove fan, and I'm sad Caden Curry didn't include Notre Dame in his top 5. Thank you for being with our show today, and I'm glad that you're able to discover us. I appreciate you very much sending the super chat. But yeah, Caden Curry was a guy that he had some interest in Notre Dame. They talked to him a little bit early, but he was never a guy that Notre Dame was real high on. And he doesn't have like that ideal size that Notre Dame looks for, that length that they look for. He's kind of a D tackle trapped in a somewhat okay sized defensive end's body. Really good football player, but I think once they got Tyson Ford and Aiden Gabera, there really wasn't a place for him because he's a similar player to them positionally, but they're better prospects in my opinion. So I think that's kind of why they looked at him. But he's a good football player. I mean, don't get me. I mean, Ohio State's recruiting him. Ohio State's not recruiting a kid from Indiana if he's not a good football player. I just think there were better guys on the board that Notre Dame had on the board, and hopefully that turns out to be true. But he's a good football player. Joseph Salvatore says, "Is Kurt Heinz's injury more serious than we initially thought?" Well, Joseph, the thing about that is you just never know how concussions are going to heal. It's not like an ankle injury where you kind of have an idea of what a time frame is, or a surgery where you kind of know it's like 6 to 8 weeks on average as a return. With concussions, it's all about when do the symptoms go away, and sometimes they never do. I mean, and that's the concerning thing with that, especially if you had a couple of them or a couple of them in a row. So yeah, is it more serious than we thought? Yeah, I mean, because you usually don't miss a couple games for concussion. You usually don't see that. So I think it is, and it's certainly concerning because we're talking about something that's different than just a knee that needs time to heal. You're talking about someone's head, what's inside their head and their brain, and that's very concerning. Absolutely, absolutely. And you can never know. I mean, some kids next day they're fine. Other kids, that stuff can linger. You just never know. Brandon asked, "Do you like Okunlola or Caden Green more?" Honestly, Brandon, I haven't seen Caden Green yet. That's a kid from Missouri, right? Big kid from Missouri. I haven't seen him yet. Who do you like more? Because I like Samson a lot. So if Caden Green's as good as Samson, in your opinion, I'm going to go check him out. But I just haven't had a chance to watch him yet. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Okay, Joseph says Penn State doesn't hand out white T-shirts, just white pom-poms. Okay, it's good to know. So I was incorrect. Thank you for clearing that up. Well, somebody else said that they do give out white shirts or white rags to wave. So I'm not sure how that is. Okay. Flashmore Mike says, "Tell me what Tommy Rees was thinking on the second series when Cone drives the team to the 10 through the air, then lose yardage on 2 runs and not missing a field goal." I know that drove Vince nuts too. I mean, I get what he's trying to do. I do. He's trying to establish the run. That's what he's trying to do. And at some point in time, you're going to need the run. And I think that's what they're trying to get from this team is they're trying to get to the point where you can rely on the run game for certain things. And I think he forced the issue there. I don't think the Wisconsin game is the time and the place to do that. I think, the quick game, the getting the ball out quickly, motions and stuff like that was what got him down there. I would have liked to see them do that. And then maybe have success on first down, get a 6-7 yard gain, and then you could maybe run it on second and short. I think it would have made a lot more sense than, getting yourself into another third and long because your offense isn't overcoming that very often. Especially on a reduced field when there's just not as it's not like you can throw go routes at the 15 or whatever it was. Connor O'Doherty says, Coach, where do you think Avery and Kevin stand amongst the tiers of receivers in college football? Do you consider Kevin to be elite? No, I don't consider him to be an elite player yet. Could he be? Sure, but he's not there yet. I mean, he's a guy that hasn't played a lot of football. He's made some big plays, but he's also had some opportunities to make big plays that he hasn't made. It's a consistency thing for him. And, again, he's a guy that hasn't played, like I said, he hasn't played a lot of football. So my expectation for him is a little bit different. But he's getting there. Do I think he'll be an elite player by the end of the year? No. I think he needs to have a good year, come back, and play again next year to become elite. That's what I think he would need to do. Avery Davis, to me, is one of the steadiest receivers in the country. I mean, he is never going to get appreciated. I mean, we had shows this summer where people are talking about, like, they want to replace him and, he can't do this or can't do that. And kid's just steady. He just makes plays. And that, to me, is what makes this team so good. I don't think that there's an elite player outside of Michael Mayer on offense, like right now, an elite player. But they're good everywhere. And we talked about this against Purdue, Connor, is, Purdue schematically took Michael Mayer out of the game. And their aggressive coverage and then how Kevin Austin responded to it kind of took him out of the game. So between Michael Mayer and Kevin Austin, against Purdue, you had one reception for 5 yards. That's it. Yet Notre Dame still won by 2 touchdowns. Why? Braden Lindsey drops a touchdown, right? So arguably your 3 best receivers do nothing. Well, but then you've got to still deal with Avery Davis. You've still got to deal with Kyron Williams out of the backfield. Still got to deal with Chris Tyree out of the backfield. That's really what makes this group really difficult. Is you could take 2 guys out of the game and still have 3 or 4 guys to deal with. And not a lot of teams have that kind of depth of weapons. Paul Argentieri says every year the Notre Dame team has a mojo moments when they played hard, fearless, and great things happen. Clemson last year, of course, Miami 88, Southern Cal 89, and tomorrow should be close to those epic games. I hope you're right. I hope it's a wake. I think there's a chance that tomorrow could be a coming out party for Notre Dame. I 100% agree with you. And all the nonsense of, they're not that talented and all that stuff is just done by tomorrow. Brandon talking about Caden Green. Yes, he's from St. Louis, I believe. I haven't watched tape yet on Okunlola, but Green looked impressive. Then again, I'm not an expert on breaking down the O-line. But hey, man, you don't have to be an expert to come in here and talk. We just talk ball here. There's no, you had to have coached X amount of number of years. You had to have played football, or you have to be a professional recruiting guy, man. If you like talking ball, that's the requirement for being a part of our show. That's it. That's it. You just got to like talking ball. So, man, love to hear your thoughts on those kind of guys. All righty, so that is going to be it for today's show. I want to appreciate everybody for being here today. I want to thank Vince. He's actually still down there listening for covering for me today when I had some things I had to get taken care of. Always can count on him. There's no doubt about it. And always can count on you all to be a part of what we're doing. And we've so enjoyed it. Our month of September, Vince and I were on the phone last night for a while and just kind of going over our numbers for September. And it was amazing, just absolutely amazing. So just to give you some context, our first month with Blue Wire, we had about 40,000 downloads on our podcast. We have what's 5 times? Is it quintupled? Is that what it is? Quintupled? We've quintupled that in, was it 8 months, 7 months? Our podcast, our YouTube numbers were almost double what our best month was before. And it's all because of you all. I mean, that's really what it is. It's because you all, we do shows every day and you all come and you enjoy them and you sit with them and you do all those kind of things. And so you all make it happen, so yeah, I appreciate y'all so much. It's been so much fun. It's a lot of work, but it's when you enjoy the people you do it with, and that not only includes Vince, but it includes you all. When you enjoy the people you do it with, it doesn't make it work. It makes it, you feel blessed, like, wow, I get paid to talk Notre Dame football every day. It's really amazing. So we appreciate y'all very much. Have a great rest of your day. Before you leave, hit the like button, hit the subscribe bell, hit the notification bell. We will have a post-game show tomorrow. If you don't hit the notification bell, you may not know when it happens. So that's why you need to hit the notification bell. If you're listening via podcast, give us a 5-star review. If you have not signed up yet, here's how you can get to our message board. There's also a link in the description bar below. Check that out. We appreciate y'all so much. Have a great day. Enjoy the game tomorrow, and we'll be ready to talk to you again after the Notre Dame victory. Everybody have a great day. We'll talk to you again very, very soon.